turned inward and focused on health and harmony and peace. All your attention is on your health and peace of mind. The almighty creative power flows through the focal point of attention. You feel the response of the Spirit flowing through you. The healing presence touches every atom of your being, and you are spiritually enriched. Dwelling in conscious communion with the divine, man ofttimes becomes intoxicated with the Spirit. A state of exhilaration of the whole being takes place. This spiritual awakening builds up the entire man, making him new, so that each day adds a new joy. As we continue to pray scientifically, we are lifted up so that an outpouring of Spirit takes place, and our whole being is revivified and recharged. Dr. Alexis Carrel, the Nobel Prize winner, in Man the Unknown, points out the marvelous effects produced by prayer. He cites the case of a cancer sore which shriveled to a scar in front of his eyes. He recounts seeing wound lesions heal in a few seconds and pathological symptoms disappear in a few hours. Extreme activation of the processes of organic repair had set in. These healings of tumors, burns, and so forth were due to nothing more than the release of the healing power within each one. God of the infinite healing presence is the only healer, the only presence, and the only power. When we call on this presence within, giving it supreme recognition.
The United States government had only 2.5 days of aviation fuel for global defense. Today it's down to the day and a quarter. When it reaches a day supply, the Joint Chiefs of Staff will have to make the decision, no more global defense. Any of you ever hear anything about the war brokers? If you want to study about history of World War I, World War II, you'll start to realize that there were men spatially trained and women trained in order to bring countries into war, to break their economic back, to take over the controls of their countries. You ever hear of the Council of Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission? You ever hear about the Council of the Group of 300? You hear about the internationalists that are controlling to bring in a one world government. Now we're heading for a one world government, but unfortunately, if the one world government is headed under a control, is controlled by a Mussolini or Hitler or a person filled with the demonic spirit, we're in one heck of a problem. If that democratic society of the world government would be a representative of each country in the world, then in fact we could be able to stabilize as people upon the earth. The attitude of the multi-internationalists is to come up with zero growth, industrial growth, zero population growth. When I was making a presentation in Geneva to 52 nations there, I was blocked in presenting this technology, not because of the viability of the technology, because the international attitude is they do not want industrial growth to be maintained. There's a move to try to force the countries to accept that they would sign over their natural resource rights. That if you sign over your natural resource rights, you have taken over the countries without even firing a shot. This is to help bring in a one world government. The number one thing that will diffuse the entire episode and be able to maintain us is to bring an alternate energy source in that we can be able to sustain and maintain not only the industrial base of this country but of the world. And therefore I will share this information with you. And once I share it with you, then you have a responsibility. I'm sharing a responsibility to you so great. Now the power structures to be, we all hear about the guys that invent the carburetors that go 200 miles per hour and what have you, and they never get out of the market area. We talk about high energy systems, development of high technology, and they never seem to get out into the marketplace. Why is that? You know, and Rockefeller was a very smart man to get our economies to operate on fossil fuel. He got a hold of a think tank. And in the think tank, he says, I want you to come up with motivating thoughts that would demotivate the people in order to bring us up on the fossil fuels. You see, at that time, we're talking about high energy research and development, are we not? And yet Rockefeller wanted to convince the population of the world that we need fossil fuel to maintain the economies, and therefore suppress and prevent alternate energy sources to come forward. And so in this think tank, he came up with such phraseologies. Well, you can always lead a horse to water, but you can't get him to drink. Any of you have ever said that? You know, if you say that out of your mouth, you know that you believe it. It's the greatest lie in the world. If you lead a horse to water and he doesn't want to drink, I'll assure you that if you stake him about 4 feet away from the water in 2 days flat, he'll try to break the rope to get to the water. If you want to speed up the process, feed him some salt. Another great demotivating thought. Well, you can't buck City Hall. How about another demotivating thought? 2 things you never discuss is politics and religion. Do you know why in the news medias that you are bombarded with tremendous negativism? Because they had found out the physical, psychological makeup of the individual is such that if you receive so much negativism, you turn it off. Do you know that if our forefathers and our grandfathers would awaken out of their graves and see what's taking place in our country today, do you know what happened? They would grab their arms and go to Washington, D.C. and clean out our government. Absolutely. The negativism that's presented to you is the process of desensitizing you to allow such atrocities to take over. And if you don't think that there are people in the world that do not want America to stand, you know why? Because the Constitution of the United States, the Bill of Rights, says as free people we have ability to enjoy certain inalienable rights that was given to us by God. And unfortunately there are some people who does not want us to continue to enjoy the freedom that our forefathers fought. And when I turned and said, I will do this, Lord, it had to be by faith. Because I was given a great gift. That gift was to be raised under freedom. Now let's see how we can use water as fuel. Because the greatest thing that all political leaders fear, that you and I would come together in one accord. That if you and I would come together in one accord, no political system in the world, no multi-internationalist groups could defeat you. Look what happened to Russia after 70 years. They said, so we no longer want communism. We're tired of the KGB killing our people, torturing our people. And said, enough is enough. And that's why you receive the negativism. That's why in these conferences that they will try to promote and try to tell you that you have not the power to say so in our government. And I want to tell you that under the Constitution of the United States, read it. For it gives us the ultimate power to be able to determine the destiny and the strength of our country. And how I'm bringing this technology in, it can't come through the multi-international structures. If I would sign over this technology to General Electric or Westinghouse, then we'd be taken over within 24 hours. If you think you got political pressures in the United States government, try to negotiate with the military. For their political pressures is great. And they cry out. And you know, when the Arabs came to me and offered me $1 billion cold cash, simply to stop on the technology. And when I said no, I will not do this. And he said, you will be stopped. And I said, why is that? He said, because the apathy of the American people is such that they will not come behind you. And for a long time, that statement stood out. But I will assure you, today, not only in the United States, but in the world, that they're coming together in one accord. And say it's enough. Because if we do not reverse this, I've recently come back from Sweden. Their entire forest are dying. Why? Because the pollutants that's going in the air, covalently linking up with the ionosphere, is decreasing the light intensity coming into this atmosphere. And as a result of this decrease in light intensity, bacteria is now allowed to grow, which is now causing blight, which is now starting to kill our trees. Go over and look in the Black Forest, that even the trees and the roots are dying. We are on a planet, which is our spaceship, and if we do not reverse, if we do not come together in one accord, then I would say, gentlemen, that we will not survive. Now, when we show this technology, you must now make the decision whether or not you come together in one accord and try, and we can do it, to come together, keep this country strong, as well as to protect it. And when President Reagan was advised of this technology, he turned against the multi-internationalists and said, do not block or do not allow this technology to go forward. And he wrote the executive action to ensure that this technology would not only be protected for the United States, but also to be protected for the world. And it's amazing to me that we have the abilities that we can proceed on. Go ahead. The first thing, and always been the first objective, and always will be the first objective in developing the technology, you must legalize it first and then bring it in. Many inventors blow their ego, they get to their Achilles heel to try to obtain the information, not for the benefit of you and I, but it's the benefit of control or manipulation or suppression of that technology. So when you develop your high technology, you do everything possible. The prime objective is to legalize the technology. When you receive that gold seal and that little red ribbon, it says that you have complied with the laws of the land. Is it not so? It's not what Stanley Meyer says. It's what is now been legalized. And if there's any question of operability of the technology, under the law, what do they have? They'll pull you under U.S. Code 35 U.S. Code 101 and show operability. And when we showed operability of this technology, then it became a great concern to protect this technology for all the countries as well as the United States. So as I move, there are many people who have seeked to try to cause me to stumble, have tried to seek to suppress me, has tried to seek in many ways, but the Lord has always allowed that we can proceed on with the technology. As we're legalizing the technology, I'm subject to the national security laws of this country. I'm also subject to the national security laws of other countries under the PCT Treaty Act. Other countries who now are informed of this type of technology is requesting that this technology would also be protected for their countries. For you see, if this type of technology is restricted from those other countries, then their entire economic base could collapse. You know, if you can use water as a fuel source to maintain the industrial base of one country, but if it's blocked in another, you can drop the prices on your goods and commodities, and therefore the other country cannot be able to sustain itself. Unfortunately, there are those who seek the power controlled by greed, right? And seems to have the desire to control man under greed. It's a form of his sickness. And unfortunately, in my many battles, we've had to overcome this type in order to bring this technology out. So you'll have to forgive me for those who feel that I should have brought the technology out further. I had to be in compliance with both the U.S. and the national security laws and the PCT Treaty Act in order to get around the loopholes that are set there not for you and I, but set there to control and manipulate the high technology. And so, if you never violate that prime directive, you can bring it in. Go ahead.
To answer that question very quickly, hopefully, when you go home tonight, I want you to look in the King James Version of the Bible and look up Job 38, verse 22 and 23. Back during the Arab embargo, I was affiliated in the retailing of truck parts, making over $1 million profit per year, actually $20 million across the United States. But my background is quite diversified from research development, product development engineering, and corporate entrepreneuring, starting corporations right on up into multi-international areas. So I found out that the Lord really had prepared me well over 20 years to be doing what I am doing today. And during the Arab embargo, when our trucks stopped along the road, it became quite serious that if we had no way of starting the trucks and start moving goods and services in and around Columbus, Ohio, then within a relatively short period of time, the masses of people in the Columbus, Ohio area and across the United States will be facing a tremendous problem, because the food supply chain in the United States is roughly around 27 days, and the food supply chain in the world is less than that. And asking certain questions as to why we have an energy problem, I found out that something happened in this country that even the experts never really anticipated. And what actually took place was that the natural pressure in our existing oil fields started dropping at a fantastic, alarming rate. So much, in fact, that we started importing foreign oil of around 5% around 65. And by 1975, the President of the United States said that we must come up with an alternate energy source if we are to survive. We have not reversed that dependency in foreign oil. The Department of Energy, DOE, has admitted to the American people that we are now dependent well over 63% on foreign oil. If that oil is cut off to this country in any way, shape, form, or fashion, in a relatively short period of time, this country could really be excited into war. You know, if you go hungry, then people start to try to do something about it. Sudan, for example, has access to the viral germ under genetic restructuring that breeds of the bacteria of air and water and even of oil. And he has the Masada complex that if I go, maybe perhaps I'll allow the world to go too. If he would use that type of viral germ and contaminate the oil, one thimbleful could contaminate the entire oil supply of the Western world. If that would actually happen, then the countries of the world would be faced to stop the flow of oil to their countries to prevent perfection or infection of that disease to the population of their countries. If that would actually happen, then we would be faced within 180 to 240 days of about 1.5 billion people facing starvation. For you see, the entire industrial revolution of the United States and the industrial base of the United States and world is based on what? The supply and the utilization of energy. Now, back in 1965, I was in Washington, D.C. when the scientists were called in to come up with a fail-safe nuclear power system. And in 3 days in that meeting, I got up in the meeting, and unfortunately, I wasn't with the Lord at that time. And I said, gentlemen, everything you have said to me in this meeting is a bunch of BS. There's no substance on the face of the earth subject to uranium-238s or 235s that you're going to have the hourglass effect occur within less than roughly a 15-year period of time. Unfortunately, 3 Mile Island came forth on the prophecy. We talk about Chernobyl, and in the Bible, in the book of Revelation, it talks about the wormwood. In the end time, wormwood would make the waters bitter, and many would die. The Russian word Chernobyl means wormwood. It's a little bitterroot plant that grows over in a certain valley in Russia where the Chernobyl plant is located. They talk about the radiation going out in the atmosphere and going over into northern part of Sweden and Norway where they had to kill all the reindeer and all their animals. But they don't talk about the meltdown going down in the water table and it's contaminating the water tables. And those contaminated water and radiation is now dumping into the Black Sea and into the Mediterranean. And all those millions of Europeans are using those waterways to wash their clothes and to wash their crops and so forth are going to be dying of cancer of high exposure to radiation. And it's said that millions will die as a result of wormwood. We have a tremendous problem confronting this. The exact same thing that happened in the United States where its natural pressure started dropping. It's also occurring in the Arab fields. You can't keep continually taking the oil out of the ground and expect it's going to be there forever. And the pressure in the Arab fields now have been confirmed that they're dropping 3 times faster than it actually has occurred in the United States. Several years ago, it was confirmed, in fact, that the North Sea oil fields have dropped in pressure by 1/3 in 1 year, and those pressures are still continuously dropping. We have a tremendous problem on the hand that the nuclear, we hear about the greenhouse effect, the pollutions affair. We're hearing about the nuclear, and we're also hearing about the depletion of oil. The entire industrial base of this world in the United States is based on the supply of utilization of energy. I went in my office laboratory and I said, God, you know I love my country. It's the greatest country in the world. If you'll help me put a power supply in the country, I'll do anything you want me to do. Subsequently, the Lord revealed himself to me, subsequently filled with the Holy Spirit, and I've been exercising the power and authority of the Word of God in order to bring this technology in. The question that was asked, how am I still alive today? I've learned the power of angels. I went to the Lord once he started to show me the knowledge of how to use water as a fuel source. And I said, Lord, you know I'm not an ignorant man. The Arabs would knock me off, let alone a string of other people would have a certain edge on the energy market. And the Lord started showing me the power of angels. You know, in the Bible, one guardian angel destroyed 185,000 Assyrian troops. Imagine when Jonathan went up to the mountainside onto the plateau and says, hey, Dad, the Lord took care of it. And he walked up, and the king walked up on the plateau and saw 100 and some thousand Syrian troops dead, slain by an angel. One angel's killed all the firstborn in Egypt, and I have 2 of them walking with me at all times. One happens to be a foot bigger than I am, and he's got a chest on him like that, and I said, thank you, Lord, I need him. You see, in a time, the Lord knew that, in fact, that we were going to reach a problem, a very critical state, that we were going to reach a point that we were going to have to do something and do it very quickly. And so my prayer was in desperation when I asked it in my laboratory, in my office laboratory, to help me. For you see, I have been confronted with high-tech development all my life. And I understand the processes of how to control and manipulate high technology to prevent it from coming in. Many of the horror stories that you hear about how to control high technology to prevent it from getting into the marketplace, unfortunately, is very true. I've been in high-level meetings and negotiations with leaders throughout the world because, you see, the same problems that are confronting us is the same problems that's confronting them. You know, in an interim period of time since the Industrial Revolution, and since the time, the internal combustion engine is the greatest consumer of oxygen into the air. And core samples in the polar regions have shown that at that beginning of time, there was like 38% of oxygen in the air. It has dropped down to 21%. If you think we got a problem, in a mere interim period of 10 years, population will go from 5.4 billion to over 9 billion people, and the present rate of consumption and pollution and contaminants that we're putting in the air, it's possible the oxygen content will drop down to around 17%. If that absolutely occurs, then we'll be on respirators. You see, I had to go to a source of power greater than Stanley Meyer's in order to try to bring in this form of technology. And the Lord said that this knowledge pertaining to water, when he was talking to Job and he asked Job the question, he said, Job, have you ever considered the treasures of snow? Or have you ever considered the treasures of hell, which I have reserved against the time of trouble, against battle and war? And the reason why I'm here today is that the multi-international corporate structure can't bring in this type of technology. The federal governments cannot bring in this technology. It has to come through an individual such as myself, and it has to move through you and I. So as I impart this technology onto you, then you have responsibilities to it. This technology must get in through the people, or otherwise it will not go forward. Go ahead. In starting my quest in order to bring in a power system, I knew from my prior scientific background that I must legalize the technology. If I do not legalize the technology and try to bring it out to the American people or even to the world, then in fact that technology could be blocked. It's not what Stanley Meyer says that what we have. It's already been proven under 35 U.S.C. 101, Section Patent Code, and under the PCT Treaty Act, show operability, and we will issue the patents. When those patents are issued and you receive your gold seal and ribbon, it says that in fact you have complied to the laws of the land, and as a result of that, now it gives me the ability under the Constitution of the United States to be able to bring this technology forward. Go ahead. In order to do this, we was contemplating how to use water as a fuel source, since water is a fantastic source of hydrogen. In my research laboratory back in Grove City, Ohio, I have the most scientific compilation study on the hydrogen that's ever come out of the scientific world through NASA. As you probably know, the Columbia Space Program is propelled by liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen. And in that report, it clearly stipulated that hydrogen was the most ideal fuel of the future. It can be utilized anywhere in the economy. It can even solve the environmental pollution problem. But they didn't have an answer in several major areas. One, to be able to produce the hydrogen on demand, release it economically, be able to control the rate of its production, be able to transport it without spark ignition. And I own and control all of this technology both nationally and internationally. It's not the complicated processes that gets out into the marketplaces. There are processes that reverse to what we call the Cadillac idea that do not comply to the law of economics, and as a result, they do not get out in the marketplace. But solving the technology, the water fuel cell technology, using hydrogen fuel, using water as a fuel source, we had to develop it under the law of economics. The guy who comes up with the cheapest way is going to win out. That's the bottom line of any form of advanced high technology. The first question we had to ask was how can we be able to break or overcome the covalent link-up of the unlike atoms of the water molecule. And so in scientific inquiry, you got to ask the right scientific question. And under the law of physics, that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So the question had to be asked, as the Lord was directing me, what happens when the two unlike hydrogen atoms link up with the oxygen atom to form the water molecule? And what actually takes place is that when the oxygen atom accepts the negative charge electrons of the hydrogen atoms, an electrical imbalance occurs equal to the two shared electrons being accepted by the oxygen atom, and therefore causes the oxygen atom to swing to a negative electrical charge, because now we have only 8 protons in reference to 10 electrons, and therefore the hydrogen atom now swings to a negative electrical charge. Since the hydrogen atom now is sharing its negative charge electron, the positive charge proton swings the hydrogen atom to a positive electrical charge. Therefore, the opposite electrical attraction force, Q and Q prime, between the two unlike atoms is now established once the water molecule is formed. The second scientific question was to ask, is it an electromagnetic field that is between the two unlike atoms? And the answer to that is no, that once the oxygen atom accepts the two negative charge hydrogen electrons, then the electrons pair together, and therefore the oxygen atom does not take on an electromagnetic charge. So it became very obvious that we could comply with the first requirement of NASA to be able to pull apart the water molecule and do it in a very economical way. Go ahead. In order to do this, it became very obvious that all we had to do was expose the water molecules to opposite electrical voltage fields and shut off the flow of amps. 180 degrees out of phase, the electrolysis process. And once you shut off the flow of amps, we know in the law of physics that voltage, in fact, performs work. When you go home and you adjust the brightness control in your TV set or your computer monitor system, you're adjusting the voltage potential behind the grid of the screen, which accelerates the negative charge electrons, which strikes the fluorescent materials, which creates the greater light intensity. We know from the cyclotron, where it takes opposite electrical fields to accelerate particles around a tube or tunnel 2 or 3 miles in diameter and accelerate these particles close to the speed of light, and these particles hit a photographic plate, and that's how physicists study matter. So we know, in fact, that voltage, in fact, does perform work. But heretofore, no one ever dreamed of using voltage to pull apart the water molecule in a physical manner. So using the opposite electrical attraction force, would not now the positive charge hydrogen atom, would it not be attracted to the negative charge voltage zone? You ever hear the law of physics, opposite charges will what? And like charges will repel. Would not now the negative charge oxygen atom be attracted to the positive charge voltage zone? So therefore, we're now pulling apart the water molecule, changing the time-share rate of the molecule and simply pulling it apart in a physical manner. Go ahead. In order to do this, we had to invent and develop the voltage intensifier circuit. Natural water, since it has the 8 electrons in the L orbit of the molecule, does not like to exchange electrons, and as a result of that, natural water is a dielectric liquid, a value of around 74 or 78.54. And as a result of this, whenever you put a dielectric liquid between 2 electrical conductive plates, you electronic guys, what do you have? A capacitor, do you not? Now, when you put a coil in series to capacitors on opposite side, you now have a pulse-tuned circuit, and as you adjust the pulse frequency, and you're tuning into the dielectric properties of water, amp flow goes down to a minimum, and voltage tries to take off towards infinity if the electronic components will allow it to happen. We're allowing using the electromagnetic fields of the 2 coils, of the resonant charging coils, to restrict the amp flow, because you see electrons carry an electromagnetic field, and as a result, these fields around these 2 resonant charging choke opposes the move of the electrons, and as the voltage will now go through this coil 90 degrees opposite to current, and as a result, we now have a way to pull apart the water molecule in an economical way. By simply increasing the turns of the coils and by increasing the number of turns on the secondary, we now can increase hydrogen production still further by increasing the applied voltage amplitude. Go ahead. If you know anything about electrical power, there are 2 parts to electrical power. One is when you consume amp flow, you consume electrical power. Is that not so? Whenever you shut off the flow of amps and you allow voltage to take over, then voltage becomes potential energy, which now could perform work. Go ahead. As a result of this, we had found out some interesting operational modes heretofore was not in the prior state of the art of electrolysis. As you allow the voltage potential to increase, hydrogen gas production is now being produced on an exponential function, not on a linear function as to the prior state of the art. Go ahead. We also found out that under our certification laboratory testing that the electrical polarization process using voltage to pull apart the water molecule performs in all forms of natural water, even including the most purest form of distilled water. Go ahead. Here you're seeing where we are now sustaining and maintaining the hydrogen flame, being sustained and maintained at a burn rate around 47 centimeters a second using ordinary natural water by simply hitting the fuel cell with a very high pulse voltage frequency, tuning into the dielectric properties of water. Go ahead. The flame that you see at temperatures will exceed from 5,000 up to 10 to 25,000 degrees by simply increasing the voltage potential to allow natural water to be used as a fuel source. Go ahead. That gave us the ability now to comply with the first major requirement of NASA, the ability to produce the hydrogen gas on demand. The blue zone signifies that as you release the hydrogen from water, it's a tremendous energy source. And under the National Bureau of Standards, it figures that the energy being released is 2.5 times that of gasoline. Now, many people do not know that when you run your car on gasoline and diesel fuel, do you not know that you're actually running on hydrogen? In a gallon of gasoline, you roughly have a half a pound of hydrogen to it. But you know natural water has 1.7 pounds of hydrogen to it? It is a tremendous, powerful fuel if you but have an answer to be able to release that hydrogen economically and do it on controlled state. But as we release this energy now, we're releasing this tremendous amount of energy, we had to develop the blue zone, rendering hydrogen safer than that of natural gas. Now, in developing this technology, as I had mentioned, we had to develop it under the law of economics, that the guy who comes up with the least expensive way is going to win out. Anyone ever heard of the KISS method? Keep it simple, stupid, don't make it complicated. The technology had to be built out of a garage, a basement, a backyard. Why? To bypass any form of exotic manufacturing technology that can control you from bringing it into the marketplace. For an example, a chemist could develop a chemical that would increase the efficiency of a solar cell, but if Exxon had the patent rights on the wafers of the solar cell, which is owned by the Arabs, would that guy be able to get it out in the marketplace? But if I could develop this technology in the garage or the basement or the backyard, then I could prevent that type of a blockage from occurring. You know, the Scripture says, don't be ignorant of Satan's devices. See, the Lord had prepared me very well in what to do in order to be very successful. In order to accomplish a task of retrofit, we had now to develop under the law of economics the ability to render hydrogen safer than that of natural gas. Now, these are very simple answers to a very complex problem. Back in 1975, there was no textbooks on this technology, and that's the reason why I have been receiving the fastest patents in the United States history and also under the PCT Treaty Act throughout the entire world. Go ahead. One of the things we address with the natural water is like a sponge. It will absorb ambient air. What proves that out? Any of you gone fishing? You ever look at the gills of a fish? The gills of a fish does not change the molecular or the chemical structure of water. The only thing it does is agitates the water molecule to release dissolved air. You know, in my 9th grade science class, I asked a question that when you light a match in the air, why does not the air burn up? Because the bulk of the air is composed of non-combustible gases like nitrogen that do not support the burning process. We had found out that the water fuel cell is a multi-gas generator. It not only releases the hydrogen and oxygen gases from water uniformly based on the applied voltage potential, it also now releases the ambient air and a bulk of non-combustible gases, or gases that do not support the burning process. And as a result, we now lower the burn rate of hydrogen gas from 325 centimeters a second around 47 centimeters a second to co-equal that of natural gas. Go ahead. How do you run an internal combustion engine off this type of technology? Well, as an engineer, you look at the internal combustion engine in 3 ways. Number 1, is it a mechanical drive device to get us here today? Secondly, is it not an air pump? Will it not pump in the ambient air through the cylinder and shove it out the exhaust? Is it not also a manufacturer of non-combustible gases? That when the burning process, the gas combustion process occurs, it produces non-combustible gas that we meter mix back with the water fuel cell, and we can automatically adjust the burn rate of the hydrogen gas to co-equal gasoline or diesel fuel or any form of fossil fuels. Go ahead. Now here we were sustaining flames from 10 to 25,000 degrees, but if I will allow this technology to go into the kitchen in your home, your wife will come back and say, hubby, you didn't do too well. Look at my pots and pans, I got holes in them. How do you lower the burn rate of hydrogen gas to 200 or 300 degrees or less? You simply capture the gas that's going through the flame that producing the non-combustible gas is recycled back into the flame or into the generator. And as a result, you can regulate it and lower the flame temperature down. Go ahead. Now here's where I was filing the patents on the abilities to render hydrogen safer than that of natural gas. And the United States government came back to me and said, boy, Stan, we know about stoichiometrics, but we sure don't know what you're talking about adjusting the burn rate of the hydrogen gas. You see, under the prior art, what they did was take hydrogen through an orifice, hit a hot plate, put energy into the hot plate, and then have the hydrogen end react with the ambient air, which in turn now would release energy from the hydrogen combustion with oxygen. The only problem being is the hydrogen moves 3 times faster than air and other gases, and so therefore you're expending energy in the process. But when we were supporting the flame, as you'll see on the videotape, once that flame is ignited, it stays there and it's maintained, much like that of natural gas or the fossil fuels. I said, well, gentlemen, if I show you how to do it, will I get my patents? Here's a flash tube. If I fill it up with hydrogen and ambient air gases and dilute it with non-combustible gases, or originally hydrogen and the oxygen or ambient air gases, when I ignite it, it would burn 325 centimeters in 1 second. If I fill the tube up with natural gas and ambient air, it burns around 42 centimeters a second. So it became very obvious that if I would dilute the hydrogen and ambient air gases with non-combustible gases that acts as a gas modulator, which slows the speed by which the oxygen unites with the hydrogen, I now have the ability to render hydrogen safer than that of natural gas. Go ahead. And as a result of this, we now have developed the ability so that we can adjust the hydrogen burn rate to co-equal any of the natural fossil fuels like gasoline, natural gas, propane, and diesel fuel, or adjust it down to burning leaves or paper. Gentlemen, that was the #1 major technology that gave us the abilities to retrofit the water fuel cell technology to any existing energy-consuming device. You see, if the oil is cut off to us tomorrow, or if some other calamity will happen and the oil will not be able to get to us, then we must be able to use a fuel cell that we can retrofit to industry very quickly to maintain it. We must be able to maintain transportation. Reports are coming out now that there's a possibility of deduction or a reduction in aviation fuel. So we don't have times and monies to develop new power plants capable of trying to maintain our economy if this oil is cut off. So we needed a retrofit technology capable of doing this. And the ability to adjust the burn rate of hydrogen and gas to co-equal the fossil fuels now gave us the retrofit capabilities that we could attach it. Detroit in the car industries is not going to change over to a power plant when Stanley Meyer shows you can take a $2.50 recycling tube in order to adjust the hydrogen burn rate to co-equal that of fossil fuels. Go ahead. This is another billion-dollar patent. Prior art said the only way you could transport hydrogen gas was to cool it down to 465 degrees below zero, put it under pressure, and truck it down the road. And you got to expend diesel fuel in order to do that. We simply take the ambient air, now mix it under a flame to produce the non-combustible gas, mix it with the hydrogen gas, and as a result, we can adjust the burn rate of hydrogen gas less than that of natural gas, and we can run it through any conventional gas grid systems. These are major problems that have been solved to give us the abilities that we could switch over very quickly to water as a fuel source. Go ahead. This is another form of technology that in the reports from NASA clearly stipulated they had no way of 100% anti-sparkback device. We found out that when you feed the non-combustible gases or the multi-gases from water through a small little narrow passageway, we call it the quenching circuit, somewhere along the line the non-combustible gases separates the hydrogen and oxygen gases that prevents gas ignition. And as a result now we have an anti-sparkback device 100% irregardless of gas pressure or volume. Go ahead. It's developed what we call the quenching circuit. These are the quenching circuits here. This is a quenching disc. This is aluminum material. The non-combustible gas also modulates the control rate of the gas, so as a result, it allows this quenching disc to be cool. So not only have we been developing the technology to use water as fuel, but we also had to develop in a way to comply with all the federal highway safety code regulations, or otherwise we would not be able to bring this type of technology out. This gives us the ability to come up with a 100% anti-sparkback device. Go ahead. We've taken it and elongated into a tube called a quenching tube that you can spark, ignite it, or burn it in any way, and it will not spark back into the generators. Go ahead. But you know, the design criteria is to comply with the law of economics. We also had to design in a way that the same engineering design specification in one system would apply to all systems regardless of size. You see, during the Arab embargo, I happen to know the fact that the Navy Department, since they had no diesel fuel, had to rely on nuclear-powered submarines. That 60% of their submarines became inoperable in a very short period of time. Are you aware that, in fact, that during that period of time that our naval task force in the Atlantic Ocean could not move for over 2.5 weeks because they had no fuel? You know, at the particular time, we only had 2.5 days of aviation fuel to fight a global war or a global war of defense. Today, it's down to a day and a quarter. And when it reaches a day, the Joint Chiefs of Staff will have to make the decision, no more global defense. If any of you people know about the war brokers, they are specialized people who bring nations into war. We're now leading into a condition that the pendulum can either swing to world peace or it will now swing it back into war. We needed abilities to be able to reduce the size weight down. We're increasing the voltage up. We're now adding laser energy in the process to be able to release it. We're now ionizing the gases in the water in such a way, liberating the electrons, and as a result, we are now attenuating and allowing a physical impact to be applied across the electrical polarization process that gave us the abilities to produce higher gas yields and reduce the size weight of the system further. Go ahead. We found out some very interesting things, that as you attenuate applied voltage in reference to pulse frequency, you hit resonance. And when you hit resonance, we had a quantum leap in the production of hydrogen gas. We also observed that as you hit resonance and allow the excitation voltage for a period of time, let's say in this case 5 seconds, shut it off, we were producing gas for 94 seconds, or divide 5 and in 94 we were producing gas 19 times in the power output stage than on the input stage. All of these characteristics were not of the prior state of the art. We found also that if you would leave the applied voltage together, hydrogen gas was being produced on a geometrical production, in a geometrical progression, and would continue on until such time you reach the maximum flow rate of water into the resonant cavities. Go ahead. We also found out now, as we allowed voltage to perform the work to split the molecule, we went from the random to the polarization, the molecular elongation we talked about, to the liquid to gas ionization, but we're also now going down to the atomic destabilization of the water molecule. You see, not only what good, for example, would develop the technology to put in a home as a home heating system, but if we could not get energy to the farmers, if the farmer had no energy to be able to plow their fields and sow their crops and harvest their crops, do we eat? I was pulled in a closed-door meeting in Columbus, Ohio, when the Columbia gas system informed us that our gas was being cut off 100%. You see, Ohio imports 95% of natural gas into the state. I saw some of the richest, most powerful industrial leaders of the state of Ohio popping pills, and I thought they were going to have heart attacks, because what they told us was we had no energy. Go home and tell your 2,000 or 3,000 employees that you have no energy, therefore you got to close the doors. If you have no energy, can you produce an item? If you can't produce a product, do you pay your bills? If you can't pay your bills, the bigger you are, the harder you fall. And that's why they were popping the pills and they were almost having heart attacks, because they were showing that they were going out of business. And the entire industrial base of the state of Ohio was shutting down because we had no form of fuel. And they said, how in the world can you tell the average guy walking down the street what you just got through saying to us today? No one in that room but one person had the answer to it. And when I went to the Lord, he had given me the answer. He said, Lord, we must move, and we must move quickly. And therefore, we also must protect the military integrity of the United States. Einstein said there's enough energy in 1 gallon of water that you could take a 1,000-car train around the earth many times. And the key was, how do we go on with the development of the technology to get it in every segment of the economy, as well as protect the military integrity of the United States? You see, in my lifetime, I learned that you must negotiate from a power of strength, not from weakness. Go ahead. We've now taken the liberated gases. We are now starting to expose it to a high voltage field, and we are now starting to bring the combustible gas atoms into a destabilized state. Now, in our technology, when you burn hydrogen and oxygen by itself, it's releasing that energy around 2.5 times that of gasoline. But there's a tremendous amount of energy in water, and the key was, how do you tap into it? Since the hourglass effect in nuclear power plants showed us that if we don't reverse and stop using nuclear power, we're going to be faced with a tremendous health problem. We're finding out that we have no more fossil fuels. The Arabs can turn 180 degrees out of phase and sell the remaining oil to China. You see, China's just opened the doors to Western technology, have they not? 25% of the population of the world wants the same goods and services that you and I desire today. And it's put into tremendous demand on the remaining supply of oil that's within the world. If the Arabs would simply turn around and sell it to the Chinese, they could care less whether they sell it to the Western countries or not. They're not very pleased that we had gone into the Mideast areas. So as a result, we're trying now to tap in, and scientists started going to the area of hydrogen fusion. You remember that? Livermore Laboratory says, well, we'll take hydrogen and we'll compress it together under tremendous temperatures of 10 million degrees, under tremendous pressure, and put it in an electromagnetic bottle. Well, that's the example of the alchemist going over looking at his students and mixing up a concoction, and he goes over and says to him, he says, well, students, what are you doing? He says, well, we're trying to come up with a chemical to dissolve anything. So the alchemist says, well, students, when you find the answer, what are you going to keep it in? Well, Livermore Laboratory, when you find the answers, what are you going to keep it in? Well, I'm going to keep it in an electromagnetic bottle. I want to tell you what, if that electromagnetic field will oscillate and fluctuate in any way, shape, form, or fashion, you've got a worse problem 3 Mile Island ever dreamed of having. They did demonstrate hydrogen cold room hydrogen fusion in the university. It's called the muon process. A muon was twice the size of an electron, and they would fake the hydrogen atom to accept the muon and eject its natural electron. And once the hydrogen would eject its natural electron, then the muon would decay, decreasing the mass of the atom. And therefore, all that energy that's held in the nucleus has to be released, because on the law of physics says everything must reach a stabilized state. I must stabilize, and as a result, releases the energy. They had proved this out many times in the university, but the technique, the muon technique, became a Cadillac process. It would take billions of dollars of trying to produce a muon generator. You see, the muon decays in a billionth of a second, so it became a Cadillac idea. We needed a way to be able to tap into the atomic yield of hydrogen and do it very safely. So the Lord was dealing with me, and in the process, the answer was very simple, that as you ignite the hydrogen and oxygen gases, if you will now prevent the hydrogen and oxygen atom to come together to form the water molecule, it cannot stabilize, right? If the water molecule cannot form during thermal gas ignition, then what will happen? Well, thermal explosive energy has to keep continuing to occur until one of two states occur, either that a new atom structure is formed or an implosion effect occurs and mass is converted into pure energy. The equivalent energy yield from 1 gallon of water is more than 2.5 million barrels of oil per gallon of water when you're talking about tapping into the atomic yield of water safely. So as a result of this, we are now starting to destabilize the combustible gas atoms. We're starting to pluck off their electrons in the process to decrease mass. We're adding electrical or laser energy to the process to bring it to a high energy state. Now we got combustible gas atoms coming off the water that is not in normal state, right? They are now in subcritical state. Go ahead. To do this, we now had to develop the electron extraction circuit, to pluck in the electrons, and you're now using the water as a source of the electrons as well as the gas. Now, as you attenuate the pulse voltage potential, the negative charge electrons, in this particular case, would come out of the resonant cavity, come down here, interact with the filament of the light bulb, producing heat energy in the form of light energy. Now, you know what am I defining the laws of physics? No. Now, what a byproduct of the process is electrical energy, gentlemen. When you look at water, you now have it as a source of electrons. And when any time you move an electron down a wire, have you not created electricity? Coulomb proved out that if you have a difference of potential of 1 volt, you can move 1 amp of current. Okay, go ahead. Now, in order to do this, we're now taking natural water. We're now mixing it with ionized ambient air gases and non-combustible gases to regulate the thermal burn rate. And we're now subjecting it to a very high pulse voltage frequency, tuning in to the dielectric properties of the gas, and now performing 3 functions simultaneously in order to release the energy from ordinary natural water on demand. Go ahead. Right here is an illustration of the hydrogen fracturing technology that as you hit with applied voltage frequency, we're now plucking off their electrons. We are destabilizing the hydrogen and oxygen atoms by adding also the laser energy to the process. The ionized ambient air gases now are capturing and preventing the electrons from going back into the process, and as a result, we're now spark igniting with the voltage. Go ahead. Now, this is an example of the hydrogen fracturing technology. To give you a little bit more of an illustration, here's where we plucked off the 4 electrons of the hydrogen atoms. We've highly energized it. So this is in a subcritical state, is it not? And as a result of this, we are now capturing the hydrogen electron, and as a result, the laser energy being absorbed here now is in a weakened state. Since the oxygen atom is in a high energized state, it will pluck off the electrons, much like that in muon, and release that tremendous amount of energy safely. Go ahead. Go on. Now we've also observed another phenomenon. We talk about ether energy or God's breath of energy. As you now subject the liberated combustible gases to high pulse voltage and restrict the amps, you're now attenuating the electrical fields within the atoms. In the law of physics, we know that there are 4 basic forces that affect the atoms. There's electrical force, electromagnetic force, weak and strong nuclear force. Is that not so? Therefore, applied high voltage will now affect and put electrical stress on the atoms, and as a result, we are now attenuating the energy aperture of those combustible gas atoms, allowing universal energy to come in the system. And as a result of this, we are now priming those combustible gas atoms to release a tremendous amount of energy. And as a result of this, we're using the voltage in order to accomplish the task. Go ahead. Here again, we're now using where the oxygen atom that has multiple protons in its nucleus. We're now putting electrical stress on the energy aperture to allow the universal energy to come in. And based on the pulse frequency, applied pulse frequency across these combustible gas atoms, we are now bringing these combustible gas atoms to a very high energy state prior to gas ignition. Go ahead. Here's a dune buggy that's now being developed. You'll see the dune buggy run on the water. This is going into pre-engineering stage. That happens to be the computer system has been developed in order to control the flow of water going into the system. This shows a steam resonator we talk about to prevent the water from freezing in the wintertime. That happens to be a gas processor. Go on now. This is the systems approach that we're developing. This is the water tank. This happens to be the fluid mixing, where we're now taking the ionized ambient air gases, mixing with the exhaust gases to control the burn rate. It's now going through a water metering device going into what we call a water fuel injector plug. Go ahead. This shows the electronic systems interfacing using This is the water fuel management system. It's a computer system that now controls the water flow and the firing of the water fuel injectors. Go ahead. This system now is starting to be debugged, and it'll be now reduced down to IC circuit chips. Go ahead. This is another development we had. It's one thing to get the patents on the processing. It's a whole different ballgame that when you get the patents on the processing, the way that you do something. But you also, in order to get the technology out, you must develop and have control of development rights on all the electronic circuit interfacing or the system's approach to the system. So we've had to go ahead and develop what we call a laser distributor that now allows us to activate the computer system to control the proper firing of the water. Go ahead. This gives you an example of the water tank. As I mentioned, the gas processors. So that happens to be a steam resonator, heat the water, and that's solid state water level control. Go ahead. The technology has taken us now down to the size of a water fuel injector. In order to run your car in water, the only thing we need to do is replace your spark plugs. Hook it to a computer system, take a water tank, feed the water under pressure around 125 pounds of pressure. The water is converted, goes through a resonant cavity, it's converted into thermal explosive energy on demand that occurs inside the engine. Furthermore, the design technology of the water fuel injector pushes out, the water pushes out any ambient air in the process. And as a result, when the water fills the resonant cavity, and it's now, when high voltage hits it, now converts it, liberates the gases from the water, ionizes it, and then goes into spark ignition. It has minimal amount of interaction with the ambient air, so therefore you knock down any form of nitrous oxide, which is minimal anyhow, to almost an absolutely negligible factor. So the water fuel injector now can fit into any internal combustion engine, as you see right here, and simply regulate the water flow in reference to the applied pulse voltage frequency electronically. Go ahead. You remember I had mentioned that the same engineering design specification of one system would apply to all systems regardless of size. Did I not say that? Here's an example of the water fuel injectors as you see it that replaces your spark plug. Go ahead. Here's shown in place in a Volkswagen engine. You'll see a dune buggy running on the water. Go ahead. This is the world's fastest Corvette. It broke the 271 mile an hour speed record. We're taking the water fuel injector technology, hooking it up to it, and that's a 7 horsepower engine. We're now increasing it to 1,000 horsepower because we can control the energy going into the engine, and as a result, we're going to try to break the world's land record with that car. Go ahead. This shows where we're hooking up to an Alaskan Bushmaster in order to break the aviation history on running on water. Go ahead. This is where the injectors are now put into a tubular cylindrical arrangement in order to supply heat to the existing furnace or to a steel mill. Go ahead. This is an example of the injectors now being retrofitted to an internal a jet engine. Go ahead. This shows the Jet Commander. We're now retrofitting the technology to. We're going to try to break the record to go around the equator non-stop and turn it 90 degrees and go from North to South Pole with it. So we're going to show demonstrations that we have, in fact, a viable answer to the energy problem using water as fuel. Go ahead. This shows a closer example of the jet engine where all we do is replace the injectors in the jet engine and link it up to.
I have here the official copy of the Stanley Meyer's coroner's report. This is the findings and facts and verdict of the coroner of Franklin County in Columbus, Ohio. Rupture of cerebral artery aneurysm. He has his wife's name here, Marilyn Meyer. This was their address in Columbus at the time. Here's some things that are on this here. Circumstances surrounding death. Descendant supposedly at lunch with NATO. This really bothers me. When you write supposedly in a government document, I'm just not sure if that's professional. But if you read this statement, you can kind of tell that the coroner was already questioning whether he was actually poisoned or not, and just dismissed being poisoned as such a blatant lie and not true. I think a brain aneurysm is a very convenient way for somebody to die, and if they were poisoned, that can cause that. I know several people in the medical field, and I've talked to them about that, and they've said the same thing. Anyway, it says here, supposedly at lunch with NATO officials at a Cracker Barrel diner, the group made an opening toast with cranberry juice, immediately after which descendant ran outside, followed by his brother, then vomited violently and told his brother that he had been poisoned. He died a few minutes later. His brother sticks to that story too. They didn't find any poisons in his system, supposedly, in this report. But I don't know. I mean, come on. The guy's been working on a water car, and he dies after he's getting ready to sign the contract. You can get this report from the Franklin County Coroner's Office. I can send you a copy of it for a few bucks if you want to. I'm going to be doing a series of videos on some of Stanley Meyer's work. I'm also going to go into, does voltage alone do work? And I'm going to kick off my series of videos with this video right here of Stanley Meyer's coroner report. I thought maybe people would find that interesting. They have some things in here of what was in his blood, but it didn't really show anything that was poisonous that I saw. But hey, you know what? All they had to do was slip that guy 50 grand. And when I did talk to the coroner on the phone, he was standoffish about talking about the Stanley Meyer case. He got really angry when I started really drilling for questions, and it was kind of a heated conversation, and ended up with him hanging up on me. And this was his name right here and his phone number. I'm telling you to call him and bug him about this, because I think Stanley Meyer was poisoned, and I think that they should have done a little bit more to investigate this. There's his number right there. I'll see you guys on my next video.
We zijn hier bij Stanley Meyer, nu buiten zijn garage. En we hebben net zijn water-powered auto naar buiten gereden, waar er nu wat over gediscussieerd wordt. En er zijn dingen aan gewijzigd en zo, dus dat kan op het moment niet lopen, maar we mogen hem dus wel helemaal bekijken.
Just explaining how this thing
Okay, go ahead.
does.
Yeah, can you zoom in back in here? Are we on?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, now this is the hydrogen computer system, which was designed in order to be able to process the fuel, to produce the hydrogen gas from water and do it economically and be able to control its firing, go in the engine to allow the Volkswagen engine to run off of hydrogen. There's a lot engineering design that went into this, even though that this is our systems engineering approach. The hydrogen computer system you see here will be miniaturized down to several IC chips, which will allow us to give the economics to apply to a conventional car. Over here, there's very unique design features that had to be developed in order to develop the water fuel cell as a retrofit energy systems to conventional cars. We had to go ahead and develop the laser, what we call the laser distributor, as you see right here, which is put between the conventional rotor cap and that of the rotor assembly. And primarily what this does, this sets up the electronic signals that goes back and triggers the computer system in order to allow the car to run successfully on hydrogen. In order to run this engine off of water, we've also had to learn the ability to adjust the burn rate of hydrogen to co-equal the fossil fuels. We did this by simply now pulling off a portion of the exhaust gas that's coming from the engine, as you see through this tube here, that's going through this electronic regulator that's hooked up to the hydrogen computer. And basically what's happening is that as the ambient air is going into the engine and going through the burning process, it produces the non-combustible gases that retards the speed by which the oxygen atom unites to hydrogen and bring on gas ignition. So by simply using the non-combustible gases coming from the exhaust of the engine, we now modulate and control the speed by which that oxygen unites with the hydrogen, and therefore we are adjusting the burn rate of hydrogen to co-equal that of gasoline or fossil fuels or even diesel fuel. And that gave us the number one retrofit capabilities of retrofitting the water fuel cell technology to an existing engine. And we do this electronically. The unit that you see right here, we call this a gas processor. And basically what we're doing is we're ionizing the ambient air gases that is now going into the process. And this allows us to trigger and use the hydrogen fracturing technology and tapping into a higher energy yield coming from the hydrogen. The unit you see right here, this is referred to as a resonant cavity. Water is now fed into the resonant cavity through this water tank, and as such, we now expose the water to a very high intense pulse voltage field and restrict the amps, and therefore the electrical polarization process now allows us to release the hydrogen economically from water. And by attenuating the voltage field, the amplitude of the voltage field, we now can control the rate of the production of the hydrogen gas on demand. So this is what's referred to as a constant demand generator. We also now extend or allow the voltage amplitude to increase even to a higher level and allow the water atoms to go into an ionization state, which gives us the ability even to produce a higher energy yield by producing more hydrogen gas on demand. So the fuel now coming from the water through the electrical polarization process going into resonance meaning that we're actually tuning into the dielectric properties of water, and it allows us to reduce amps down, flow down to a minimum, and allow voltage to take over that disassociates the water molecule on demand. And those fuel gases are now coming through this electronic injector system as you see here. So basically we're now feeding the ionized air from the gas processor. We're now also taking the water fuel gases that are now coming from ordinary water. We are now mixing it with the non-combustible gases and the ambient air gases and regulating those control of the fluid mediums or for fluid mediums. And as a result, now we can tune in and allow this engine to run off of natural water. This system's approach, this particular unit here is referred to as the VIC, or the voltage intensified circuit technology. This is being miniaturized down to a very small, lightweight system. This is demonstrated in our systems engineering approach on a technology that we can apply it to other applications, not only in the transportation area, but also in industrial applications. So it was paramount that we would demonstrate and have the technology solved for design engineering, retrofitting to existing energy-consuming devices, whether it's being run in an internal combustion engine or a diesel engine, or hook it to an industrial process. So all of these design interfacing technology is now being solved. We are in the latter stages of what we call the pre-engineering system, which will now allow us to miniaturize the technology once we're completed on the design applications and take it into mass production. Give you a classical example of this. We've also developed from this technology, which we call the water fuel cell injector. And basically, this injector now is a miniaturized water fuel cell or miniaturized resonant cavity. And this technology now allows us to simply replace, we can bypass this part of the systems approach and now simply replace the spark plug with the water fuel cell injector. And as a result now, we can run the water up to the injector, which is now being processed and being exposed to a very high pulse voltage frequency. And as a result, as the water fuel is being going into the system, then the explosion takes place inside the cylinder. Therefore, it makes this an extremely fail-safe operable system. The cord that you see here is strictly hooks up to a very high intensity voltage pulse, and we restrict the amps to cause the electrical polarization process, which in turn the voltage amplitude now takes it and goes in the ionization state to perform the hydrogen fracturing technology. And then in turn, the high pulse voltage frequency now allows the ignition of the gases. So therefore, we do this electronically. And so this technology has taken us down to the water fuel cell water fuel injector, as you see here today, which gives us a very economical way of simply converting and running a conventional car ordinary on natural water. So basically what we do is we feed ordinary natural water in here, non-processed natural water. We now feed the ambient air gases being ionized. It's being mixed with the water. And then we mix the non-combustible gases going in the system that regulates the control and so allows us now to release the thermal explosive energy from hydrogen and do it on a controlled means. Further development on the technology centered around also the development of what we call the laser accelerator control. And this had to be developed in order to translate from a mechanical displacement to an electronic displacement in order to allow the hydrogen computer system to produce the gas on demand based on acceleration control. So what you're really seeing with the water fuel cell as it is today is that we have a full system engineering approach allowing us now to use water as a main fuel source to be able to run a conventional engine and run it on water and do it and equal or supersede the performance of a car running on gasoline and diesel fuel. Many people do not realize that when you run a car or truck on either gasoline or diesel fuel, you're actually running it on hydrogen. And all we're doing is using the hydrogen from water. And under the National Bureau of Standards figures shows that when you use water, the energy release is roughly 2.5 times more powerful than that of gasoline. So water is a very powerful fuel. And all you needed to do was solve the answers of, number one, producing the hydrogen economically, controlling it on demand, being able to adjust the burn rate of the hydrogen gas to co-equal the fossil fuels, and the third one was to be able to transport it without spark ignition. And we've solved all of these problems on the design engineering, and of course the water fuel injector, as I've shown you, now gives us the abilities to transport the water directly to the fuel injector, which is now going into the voltage zones, which now is performing the electrical polarization process that goes and triggers the hydrogen fracturing technology. But it's doing it inside the engine. So we all know that natural water is very stable, and therefore it becomes a very fail-safe operable system, as we pointed out earlier. Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah, yeah. So in a system engineering approach, in mass production, it looks like we can translate and reduce the systems approach down to a unit that costs roughly $1,500 per vehicle. For trucks, it will be slightly larger than that, below $5,000. It looks like we'll be able to reach the economics to it and use an ordinary natural water. You add nothing to the water. You don't process the water in any way. Now here's another feature to the system that everybody asks me about, is what happens to the water in the wintertime? Does it freeze up? Well, part of our technology, was in the areas of development what we call a steam resonator. Now, since the unlike atoms take on opposite electrical charges, we simply use another part of our technology to restrict the Amps-Law voltage to take over, and therefore we agitate the water molecules, which in turn generates kinetic energy, which in turn heats the water. Now, this is phenomenal in the fact we consume very little electrical energy in order to heat the water. So there are very far-ranging advantages and features to the technology, ranging even in the areas that we now have a way of using voltage and by switching off amp flow and dealing with the environmental control areas. We're developing the technology in the areas of desalination of salt water. Whenever you have a free and abundant energy source like water, it's only limited to the imagination to put it to work. This technology is very applicable to desalination of the salt water, handling of toxic waste chemicals by high pulse voltage frequency and restrict the amps. We now can separate the molecular structure of toxic chemicals and render them useless and safe. It also takes us to the technology of combining unlike atoms that heretofore was not possible under the natural state of covalent link-up. This led us to the development of the EPG electrical generator technology, where we're able to manufacture a magnetized gas that exists at room temperature and enhance the electromagnetic field without increasing mass. So our technology since the time of the Arab embargo has been very far-reaching to give us a comprehensive energy source that we literally can use anywhere into the economies and move in a bilateral movement throughout the economies of the world to bring an energy source in. And as I pointed out earlier, the pending energy crisis that's will confront us very quickly. We literally have the ability now of systems engineering it to mass production very, very quickly, and hopefully be able to stem off this imminent energy crisis that is now occurring. A lot of people are not aware of that Kuwait produces or manufactures the majority of aviation fuel for the world, and it's anticipated, as pointed out earlier, that it's possible as much as 20% drop in aviation fuel may occur within 6 to 8 months. If that happens, then the dominoes effect will occur, and will start to trigger an energy shortage throughout the world. The same conditions that happen in the United States is also occurring in the Arab fields, where the natural pressure in the existing oil fields are dropping. The only difference between the U.S. and the Arab fields is their pressure is dropping 3 times faster than occurred in the United States. You just can't keep pulling the oil out of the ground and expect it's going to be there forever. The hourglass effect is occurring at a more faster rate now on nuclear power plants. China's opened the doors to Western technology. 25% of the population of the world wants the same goods and services that you and I have been enjoying, and that the industrial base cannot be maintained or expanded without the supply and utilization of energy, of which we have very little fossil fuel left. So it's imperative that we develop the technology that we can move very quickly, and of course water was the answer to it, because water is a very free and abundant energy source. And so this technology has led us to the abilities of harnessing and using the water in this particular way, which we call the water fuel cell technology.
Could you give an indication of the amount of energy stored in a gallon of water compared to a barrel of oil, for instance?
Yes. As I pointed out earlier, when you separate the hydrogen and oxygen gases and go into the gas ignition process, its energy release is roughly 2.5 times that of gasoline. Now note the reference is not 2.5 times that of fingernail polish, it's 2.5 times that of gasoline. But in the hydrogen fracturing technology, we have developed a technology, as the Lord has shown me, that by igniting the hydrogen and oxygen gases and setting up a condition by which the water molecule is prevented to form, then we now can tap into a very higher energy yield. And as a result of this, the hydrogen fracturing technology shows that we can release energy up to beyond 2.5 million barrels of oil per gallon of water and do it safely. And as I had shown you earlier, we are now preparing this technology to be retrofitted directly to a jet commander, which we plan not only to fly around the world nonstop around the equator, but turn 90 degrees and go from the North and South Pole. So it's a tremendous amount of energy source. And what we've done is found a triggering process to allow us to release this tremendous amount of energy and do it safely. So it gives us the ability to not only sustain and maintain the economies of the world, but also give us the abilities to handle the environmental pollution problems at the same time. We can't keep putting CO2 in the air and expect that the energy level is going to be there even for our plants. And we all talk about the greenhouse effect, but very few people come up with a viable answer to it. And the water fuel cell technology gives us the ability to get us.
Yes. Stanley, can you explain your driving force behind spending all this money and energy developing something like this? It has cost you about 10 years of your life. Can you explain why you're doing all this and what really drives you to keep...
Well, I did an analysis during the Arab embargo as to what actually occurred. I didn't pay any attention to the political leaders as to why we had an energy problem. And I realized that without a new free and abundant energy source to come into the world economy very quickly, then the world economy could collapse. So as a scientist, I have a very diversified background from research development, product development, engineering, and corporate entrepreneuring. And when I realized the problem that was confronting us, I went into my office laboratory. And as a scientist, I had always believed that there was an existence of God. It was mathematically impossible that we had derived ourselves from swamp gas. If you got to have a lot of faith, you have to have a lot of faith to believe in evolution. And so I went in my office laboratory and I said, God, I love my country. It's the greatest country in the world. If you'll help me put a power supply in the country, I'll do anything that you want me to do. And subsequently, I was like Paul on the road to Damascus. I didn't know the Lord, but once he revealed himself to me, subsequently I was filled with the Holy Spirit, and I've been exercising the power and authority of the Word of God, bringing this technology in. And many people ask me about, do I fear my life? I have learned the power of angels, and I have been protected in trying to bring this technology in. The ultimate objective is not only to stabilize the economies of the world, but if we realize any funds from the technology, it will go into world evangelization. You see, as a scientist, once truth is shown to me, truth is truth. And, of course, I got what I wanted, a ticket to go into heaven. I got filled with the Holy Spirit. And so, as a scientist, truth is truth. And I have responsibility, just as I have a responsibility to the water fuel cell technology to try to bring it out into the world. I also have the responsibilities to relate the truth to the Word of God, not only to the guy, to the next door neighbor or the guy down the block, but also relate that truth or that knowledge to every person in the world if I possibly can do it. So the ultimate objective of the water fuel cell technology really is to help set the financial base of capable of evangelizing the world. Now there's a difference between spiritual knowledge and worldly knowledge. And you can't go to the world system and ask them to help evangelize the world and spread the gospel. But you can go to a world system and give them a cheap power supply that's so economically, that'll save them economically, and then those funds will go into the world evangelization. So the water fuel cell technology, really, the ultimate objective is to accomplish the task of evangelizing the world by giving the financial abilities to do so. And that's my ultimate and prime objective. The water fuel cell will give us the abilities to do this.
Can you explain, you mentioned one Bible text in the
Well, if you notice on my logo, you'll see Job 38, verse 22 and 23. And this is where the Lord is talking to Job, and he asks Job this question. He says, have you considered the treasures of snow, or have you considered the treasures of hell, which I have reserved against the time of trouble, against battle and war? Now, the interpretation of the scriptures are as follows. Is not snow the most beautiful part about water? That no one snowflake looks exactly the same as that of another? The treasures of snow is the characteristic and knowledge of water. The Lord knew that, in fact, that we would have and reach a very critical point in our history, that since we went on dependency of fossil fuels, the flow of fossil fuels may be disrupted. And as a result, the Lord specified that this knowledge of water would come out at a time of great trouble. But he also specified that the knowledge would come out prior to two events.
Okay, Sam, now that we've heard how the thing functions, you explained your background, why you're working on this thing, what do you think of possible applications, and where do you think this device can be applied, in what scale, and what's the amount of energy we can get out of it? Like you talked before about converting cars, commercial airplanes. Is there any other application you think of?
Oh yes, not only is this technology applicable for all modes of transportation, but it also has application in industrial processes. During the Arab embargo, I was called in a meeting in Columbus, Ohio with the industrial leaders, and Columbia Gas System informed us that our gas was being cut off 100%. what actually were telling us that we were going out of business. And I saw some of the most richest and most powerful industrial leaders of the state popping pills, and I thought they were going to have heart attacks. Because basically without energy, you can't make a product. If you can't make a product, you can't make profit. If you can't make profits, you cannot pay your bills. So the result, the bigger you are, the harder you fall, the faster that you would go in economic bankruptcy. So it was imperative that this technology not only be developed for the transportation areas, but also to apply to industrial applications, to be able to give energy. The technology and hydrogen fracturing technology that gave us the abilities to go in and to protect the military integrity of the Western world. So this technology is applicable not only in those areas, but for example, during the Arab embargo, our Navy task force did not have the fuel. And so as we have the abilities now to go on the maritime applications, literally run the ships off of water as a main fuel source, and at the same time using the application is cleaning up our environment and preventing from the CO2 and the contaminants that go in the air. So we can move this technology bilateral in every aspect of the economy and do it very, very quickly. And so that leads us now into the fact that we have been developing this technology for mass production. And so once we finalize debugging of the pre-engineering unit, then we're going to translate it into a very cost-effective system by taking the technology into microchip technology, and plastic mold injection technology allows us now to move this type of technology very quickly. Matter of fact, one master mold set can produce over 11,000 units every 24 hours. That gives us abilities now to move in a bilateral movement, but to get the energy source throughout the entire world quickly, if the oil is shut off to us, either by war or by some other methods. A lot of people do not realize Saddam has the viral germ through genetic restructuring, that if he uses it, it lives off the bacteria of air and water and even of oil, and if he uses this, it's possibly that the oil could be contaminated very quickly. And if that is so, then every country in the world would be faced of shutting off the flow of oil to each of their countries. Now, without the supply of fossil fuels, within 180 to 240 days thereafter, about 1.5 billion people would be facing starvation very, very quickly because we need that flow of energy in order to maintain the industrial bases of the world. So we've designed the technology to be very flexible to use every segment of the economy and do it very quickly. So we're all in the same boat. And what we're doing is illustrating that, yes, the technology is viable. Here we do have a viable technology that we now can use water as a fuel source, because water is a very free and abundant fuel source. But it's going to take you and I and the guy down the street and the people in each country to bring this technology into the marketplace to stabilize their countries. And so as a result, we are developed it under the KISS method, keep it simple, stupid, to comply with the law of economics, that the guy who comes up with the cheapest way is going to win out. So by decentralizing the mass production of the system and the fabrication of the system, and decentralize the installation of the system, then we should be able to move in a bilateral movement throughout all the countries of the world to get this type of technology into their countries to stabilize their economic base. If the oil is cut off by these means, or it simply is being cut off by a lack of supply of oil that's now showing. It's the same natural pressure that dropped in the airfields, as I pointed out a little earlier, is also occurring in the North Sea. The North Sea pressure has dropped by 1/3. So we all need the energy, and so therefore I feel that it's going to take the people of the world to come together, and the leaders of each country to come together in one accord in order to allow this type of technology to go on to stabilize their economic basis in each respective country.
Do you have any time scale for mass production set up yet? And second, do you have any organization, or you're planning an organization, international? Or?
Yes, we are. I'm negotiating with many leaders of different countries of the world. But the ultimate objective is to mobilize the masses of the people in order to bring it in. This is the only way that can come in. And so as we finalize our debugging of the system and take it into mass production areas, we can do this by simply turning the technology over to many, many fabricators and people who have certain skills in the machining areas or mass production areas that will allow this type of technology to be produced very quickly.
Thanks very much for this interview.
Oh, my pleasure.
We appreciate it very much. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll see you red light.
Autofocus is on now.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Stanley, can you give us some idea about the size of a conversion kit for a car, for instance? We see all this electronics sitting there, but I guess this is not going to be part of a future upgrade kit for a car, is it?
No, basically what this was a pre-engineering unit in order to satisfy the U.S. Code of Operability on Section 35, Section 101, and it was developed as pre-engineering to show the operability of all the different operational parameters of water fuel cell. But in actuality, the entire technology you see here is really reduced down to the water fuel cell injectors you see right here.
This is the only thing that's needed for upgrading a car, or is there anything else involved?
No, the water fuel cell injector, which replaces the conventional spark plug in an internal combustion engine, this is hooked up to a water tank. Basically, if you have a plastic fuel tank in your car, you simply drain out the gasoline, flush it out, fill it up with fresh water. Then the water fuel cell injector now allows the water to be transferred. The system approach allows the water to go in to the injector, which is now being processed to release the thermal explosive energy from hydrogen. The second part that's hooked up to it is what we've referred to here again as the gas processor that's ionizing the gas to allow it to come in. So basically in retrofit, all we're doing is simply tapping off the exhaust gases from the conventional engine. We're now using the gas processor to utilize the ambient air to ionize the gases, which is now mixing with the water, which now converts it to water fuel. We allow the water fuel to go into the injector that's now plugged into our, replaces your spark plug, and allows the engine now to run off the thermal explosive energy from hydrogen. So basically, all we're doing is taking the gasoline out of the tank, fill it up with water. We now replace the spark plug with the water fuel cell injector, and we now hook a small little miniaturized computer which controls and meter mixes the gases going into the engine to allow the engine to accelerate and deaccelerate. So the installation is quite a very small, lightweight, compact electronic control system.
Okay, now the distributor, is that going to be the same? Can you use the same distributor, or do you have a modified version, or is there anything additional to it? Can you explain about that?
We do modify the distributor as it's shown over here. We simply take off the conventional rotor cap out of a conventional engine, and we put the laser distributor in between the distributor assembly and the cap, and this now sends the signals to the computer system, which will really be a composite of several IC or integrated circuit chips that miniaturizes the hydrogen computer system.
Okay. This whole hydrogen stuff, isn't it extremely explosive in the car? Is there any danger involved? What's the safety aspect of it?
No, we have actually solved the problem. There's no storage of hydrogen whatsoever. The water goes into the injector, which now allows it to go into a high pulse voltage zone, which performs the electrical polarization process. So the water is only converted into thermal explosive energy as it enters the injector, so the thermal explosive energy is now occurring inside the engine. So the electronic system is designed to regulate and control the explosion of the energy, which now co-equals that of gasoline, so it's a tremendously fail-safe operable system.
Okay, so it's safe, it's a small system.
Yes.
What about maintenance of the car engine itself? Do I need more maintenance? Is there a difference? Is there anything, do I have to modify anything on the maintenance schedule?
No, just keep the same maintenance as you have it. Since you're releasing thermal explosive energy into the engine and you're co-equaling the burn rate of gasoline, then there's very little maintenance. If there is any maintenance at all, we developed the technology years ago that we could really impregnate the cylinder walls of the engine with Teflon, and we can even impregnate treat the bearings and literally run an engine off of the Teflon and eliminate the oil. If that occurs, then you can use a product something like Slick 50 in the engine if you would need it. But the wear factor, since it's a very clean burning fuel, hydrogen is a very clean burning fuel, then the engine oil is not contaminated under the old method of running on gasoline or diesel fuel. So it's an extremely clean burning fuel.
Are we on?
Yeah, the
Low temper. Good, Stanley. What about the valves in the engine? The pistons don't the pistons burn out because there's no lubrication of the lead or any other additives to the usual gas?
No, the valves, have been designed very recently to operate off of non-leaded gasoline, and since we use the exhaust gases to cycle back in to modulate the burn rate of hydrogen gas, as we now control the burn rate to co-equal gasoline, then the engine temperature and operations are duplicating the same thing on gasoline or diesel fuel. So you don't change the engine in any way. And this allows us now to retrofit the water fuel cell technology to any existing engine. And it's very important because it now gives us the ability that we can stabilize transportation, as we talked about before, if the energy is cut off.
Okay, so now the accelerator. Can they still keep the same mechanical accelerator, or do you have a new device for that as well?
Yes, we developed over here as we come along. We've developed the what we call a laser accelerator, as you see right here, that simply is attached to the accelerator pedal, and it as you press the pedal down, the gas pedal down, it displaces the mechanical displacement into electrical impulses, which now is fed into the micro-miniaturized computer electronics. So this gives us the abilities now to control the acceleration. This type of technology has given us the abilities to equal or supersede the performance of acceleration and deacceleration on conventional cars that's running on gasoline or diesel fuel. So the hydrogen, being 2.5 times more powerful than gasoline, gives us a tremendous amount of performance over the prior state of the art. It runs very smoothly, and it has a very unusual sensation. Generally, when you're running a car on gasoline, you have this kind of a pause. But when you're running on hydrogen, the way we're doing it, it's a constant acceleration. So it's a extremely very fast responding fuel source that's coming from water.
So you're claiming that performance is equal or better as a normal gasoline car?
Oh yes, definitely. It'll even start up quicker. In the wintertime, you're dealing with a liquid gasoline or liquid diesel fuel, and you have problems in starting. In cold weather, you don't freeze gas atoms, and so by converting the water into instant energy, gives us the ability to start the engine very, very quickly.
When you start an engine in the morning, for instance, how long does it take before you can drive away?
Oh, it's an instantaneous startup. Immediately when the pulse voltage frequency hits the water, it converts it to the gas, which now produces the thermal explosive energy. So it's an instant type of start.
Okay.
The electronic circuit interfacing gives us the abilities to control and meter the amount of water that's going in on the start condition as opposed to on a run condition. So the computer automatically adjusts between the start condition and the run condition. So electronically, we have the abilities to adjust for these parameters. And the same as a conventional car, we also have the abilities to adjust for different ambient air conditions going from sea level up into the mountain ranges. So automatically, the electronic circuitry design gives us the abilities to adjust these parameters to give us a very smooth operational performance.
But what about air pressure? I mean, when you go up high in the mountains, you don't use ambient air, so it has no influence on the performance of the car.
No, if you come over here, here we have a device is a metal bellows, which now allows to control the amount of ambient air going into the engine of the car. And this automatically allows us to regulate the ambient air pressures going from sea level up into the mountain areas. So electronically, these solenoids you see here have sensors that automatically senses the amount of ambient air pressures, and they're automatically electronically adjusted to compensate it for difference of air pressure. So this allows us now to give us tremendous good performance going from sea level right on up into the high mountain regions.
Hello everyone, my name is Russ Grease, and today I'm going to be telling you some stuff about Stan Meyers and It is very important information that I have found out from some of his older patents that I have personally never seen before. A couple days ago I found these while looking up the gas core transformer. The patents I'm going to be talking about are patent number CA, it's a Canadian patent, 1213671. Make sure I got that right, I may have said it wrong. The other patent I'm talking about is patent number 4, it's a US patent, 4613304. Right there. Now the information I'm going to tell you is so important I cannot stress enough. So what I need you to do right now is go down to the description of this video, and I've posted a link to an actual downloadable video link posted on a server that you guys need to download and re-upload on your channel. Do that right now before you even watch this video, because I'm afraid this video is going to be gone. My information, my YouTube channel, in case you're watching this video on someone else's channel, is rwg42985. That's my YouTube. My email is rwg42985@aol.com. Try to contact me if you'd like. If I don't get back with you right away, I do apologize. But you have full rights to post this video anywhere you'd like, and to chop this video up if you need to fit it on your channel. And post it on all the servers you can, and if you're in any groups at all, mass email this information to people. I'm not kidding, this is seriously important information, and I'm going to go through it right now. I'm going to go through these patents. A guy by the name of Craig Westbrook actually went up and saw Stan's water car, and him and a group of people, and he states some information that he has personally seen that comes out of these patents as well, that totally is going to blow you guys' minds. So I cannot stress enough, this is so important for you guys to pass this information along, and do it right now. Alright, let's get started. So the first patent I'm going to talk about is the Canadian patent. Again, there's the number. The patent is called Electrical Particle Generator. Alright, and it's basically an accelerator, a particle accelerator. And Alex Petty posted this on his blog. I told you guys about this. And the patent I will be posting in the description. I'll put the patents in there. I believe, not 100% sure, but I believe that some of the notes that are handwritten on there, like this page here, are, I believe, Alex Petty's notes. I could be wrong. Do not quote me on that. But this second patent is the most important piece of this puzzle, but you have to read the first one. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. And basically, I'm going to just read some of the highlighted stuff, and you can go through there and do this research for yourself. Excuse me reading this stuff. I'm not the best. I'm a builder, not a reader. Abstract. This is what it's supposed to do. An electrical particle generator comprising of a non-magnetic pipe and a closed loop having a subsequential amount of magnetized particles encapsulated there within. A magnetic accelerator assembly positioned on a said pipe having an inductive primary winding and low voltage input to said winding. So it's a low voltage input. A secondary winding positioned on a said pipe opposing the said primary winding. So it's on the opposite side of the primary, the secondary is, like a loop. Upon voltage being applied to the said primary winding, the magnetized particles are passed through a said magnetic accelerator assembly with increased velocity. So it's literally a particle accelerator. And it's just using standard coils. Now the particles, that's what's interesting. That's what I need to figure out. I've got most of it marked here. I'll keep going. The velocity accelerated particles continue through the said pipe and induce an electrical voltage / current potential as they pass through the secondary winding. The increased secondary voltage is utilized in an amplifier arrangement. Alright? So basically, you've got standard coil that has a core in the middle of it, and you can magnetize that core, and a transformer has two of them on there. Let me just get one. Alright, here's a standard transformer. Okay, in the gas core transformer, this iron core, which is looped like this, is going to be a non-magnetic pipe. Now what I found out is that it's in the newer patent is that the magnetic pipe is supposed to be non-magnetic and not copper or aluminum. It has to be some sort of a plastic, I would think. Now I'm going to show you some stuff that's going to be real interesting later with some pictures of Stan Meyer's estate as well. And we'll get to that. But basically, this would be a pipe, and there'd be magnetic particles going through here, and you are basically super energizing those particles and speeding up velocity. So when they go through the secondary, usually magnetic flux is in this core, but in this application the magnetic flux is in the particles. So it's actually going around the core, and it is the flux carrier of this particular device. So even though it's a non-magnetic core, by magnetizing the particles within here, you are actually inducing voltage into your secondary. And that is super important. I honestly think that that is one of the key components to Stan Meyer's work. Nobody knew it. Nobody understands it. So I'm going to explain it to you. Alright, let's keep going. It says a non-magnetic pipe having a closed loop, having a subsequential or some stanal, can't read, sorry, amount of magnetized particles encapsulated there within. Okay. So you got a pipe with particles in it moving around. The primary voltage, inductive winding with a low voltage input. The secondary winding comprised of a greater number of turns than the primary. So it's a step-up transformer in this patent. The primary inductive winding and core are positioned around the first position on an endless closed loop non-magnetic pipe. Now in this patent it keeps saying non-magnetic, but in the later patent it actually tells you it cannot be a conductive material either. And that's interesting because I'm going to show you some pictures that are kind of weird. And they look like copper, so I'll show you. The secondary windings, alright, it says here, the secondary windings are positioned around an opposite position of the sad endless pipe. So basically, just like this, except you have a non-magnetic pipe in between these cores, or the coils, I should say. It says the magnetic elements are particles and preferably gas. Now it also talks about solids and liquids, but preferably gas, it says here. As the particles approach the accelerator assembly, the primary coil in the field therein attracts the particles and accelerates the particles to enter the gap of the coil. As the magnetic elements proceed, the repulsion end of the accelerator will impart further magnetic force to the particles. So basically the particles are being sucked in here and they're being drawn in and shoved out, and the velocity speeds up. Now that's another interesting thing. Hydroxy, or hydrogen and oxygen gases can be in many different states. Solid, liquid, plasma. So it's possible that this is a plasma core transformer. Real quick, I'm going to show you the drawings so you guys can see what I'm talking about, because it's kind of confusing. Basically, that's what it looks like. Alright, the primary and the secondary. Okay, and the particles are accelerating, they're being sucked in here and pushed out here, and then being induced, the current's being induced in this coil here. Alright, so that's what it looks like. That's just a standard drawing. I'm going to show you some other drawings that are very interesting. It's in the patent. If you want, go download the patent now. It's a link in the description, or you can look at it, find it online, and read this stuff with me. Alright, let's see. So it says the magnetic elements pass through the core of the secondary winding. There is induced a voltage therein. In this way, a much greater voltage is induced in the secondary winding of the transformer. Now, the key word there is voltage. It doesn't say anything about amperage. But let's keep going. It is principal objective of the present invention to provide an electrical generator capable of producing a voltage/current much greater in magnitude Thereintofore possible. Or hereinto possible. Okay, that statement right there. Bottom yellow one. Pause the video and read that. Basically, it's saying that you're going to be able to get a greater voltage and current in magnitude. Basically, never thought before possible. Okay, that right there is hinting towards something that will sustain itself while it's running. Let's keep going. Let's see. It just talks about you can use direct current, alternating current, pulsed, or other configuration of waveforms. So it's a universal transformer, which is genius. That means you can build one, and you can put anything into it you'd like, and the output would be close. Let's see. Again, it just says closed loop magnetic pipe. It does not say what kind of pipe, copper, aluminum, plastic. It doesn't say. It also says the magnetic accelerator assembly comprises primary windings, a magnetic core, and voltage taps. So it's almost like the primary winding is wrapped on some sort of a magnetic core. Is kind of what it's saying there. Alright, here it talks about the elements within the gas core transformer, and it says the elements must be significantly light to be freely mobile. Therefore, the elements may be particles suspended in a fluid medium, such as liquid gas or lightweight movable solid particles, and more preferably gas. So, obviously he's tried them all, and gas works the best, but they all do function. The magnetized elements are discrete. Right, the magnetized elements are discrete elements. That is, each particle or minuscule part therefore is separately magnetized. Alright, which basically means the particles are individually magnetized. That's what I'm getting out of that. Each particle and not upon the mass. So that means not the whole mass going through it, but each individual particle is being magnetized. Alright, the voltage applied to terminal 16 of the primary winding is low voltage. And then later it says the output of the secondary transformer is a high voltage / current output. So you're putting in low voltage and getting high voltage, high current out. Again, that applies to something that will sustain itself, which is what I'm getting to. Yeah, serious deep information here. Hang in there with me. Get to the good stuff. Increasing the number of coils with a given size winding, the voltage current output is increased. A large diameter pipe can be used with a substantial number of turns of heavy gauge high current wire. So basically you could get some serious amps out of this thing. Let's see. With particular reference to figure 5, there is illustrated a coil arrangement that utilizes the entire magnetic flux in a closed loop tubing. Alright, I'm going to show you what figure 5 looks like. This is going to blow your mind. If you've never seen these patents, this is going to blow your mind. This is figure 5. Alright, now check this out. I'm going to show you something. Alright, so this is Stan Meyer's estate video. These are online. You can go look them up. Stan Meyer's estate. Now here's what's interesting. Alright, that and that. Nobody's seen these before. Nobody's heard of these before. If you have, it's awesome, but most people have not. These are not in standard documents out there with Stan's work. Let me play the video here. This is a pump. Okay? A pump. And it's pumping the gases through here. The first version had a pump which pumped the gases through the core instead of using a magnetic field to push it through the core. Alright, let's keep going.
Systems, different styles.
Alright, this is another one. And it looks like it has some sort of a heat dissipation in here. Either there's a coil in here, that's the accelerator, or there is so much heat going through this, as in a plasma gas, think about it, that it's got to be cooled because it gets too hot. All right, let's keep going. Okay, here's another one. I have not spent a whole lot of time looking at this one, but you can see the same thing. This is a coil of pipes. Okay, look, here's another picture of another patent. This is figure 6. Now, come on, guys. Look. What? That is that. All right, so he is, you know, this is not just an invention that hasn't been built. No, this thing works. All right, let's keep going. Okay, guys, I paused the video again on this. Back to what I was saying. With particular reference to figure 5, there is illustration of a coil arrangement that utilizes the entire magnetic flux in the closed loop system. That means there's magnetic particles accelerating in this closed loop right here, and there's a coil. You can see the coil wrapped around this. These actually look like individual coils. I cannot tell, but those look like individual coils. And in his later patent, you actually see individual coils, just like this, hooked up in series or parallel, depending on what kind of output voltage you want. Okay, so this is some heavy-duty stuff right here. This is the most important patent and information of the whole work of Stan Meyer's, in my opinion. From now up to my research right now, that's what I'm saying. All right, guys, let's keep going because I got some serious information to tell you guys. All right, just like I was saying. All right, so just as I showed you in that video, what that looks like. There's another one here. It says in Figure 9, illustrated mechanical particle accelerator, which is what that red. Let me just show you. It's what that red. That is. That's a pump. That's an electrical, like air pump. All right, and picture they are talking about, the illustration, looks like this. There's your pump. All right, and boom. He's just pumping particles through there, magnetized particles, and picking up voltage on the output. All right, it says the magnetic particles are permanently magnetized prior to being encapsulated in the non-magnetic pipe. So basically, it's a closed pipe. The particles are magnetically, permanently magnetized, put in this pipe, and continuously ran through this. So it can be a closed loop system. You don't have to constantly put things into it. If you're not going to burn the gas, you can make this a closed loop system. Alright, this is just some amazing information. Alright, let's see. Now here's where I'm trying to figure out what's going on. It says in Figure 10, which is this one. This is an early staged, basically, what looks to be like a hydrolysis chamber. Okay, or an electrolysis chamber. Alright, here's what it says about that. There is an illustrated apparatus, which doesn't really mean it's his apparatus, it just means it's the one that's in the book, carrying out the purpose of vaporizing material into vaporized particles and thereafter magnetizing the particles by subjecting them to a magnetic field. So it looks like Alex or somebody, I believe, has something here that says permanent magnets right here. So as the gases, whatever gases these are, I don't truly think these are just hydrogen and oxygen. I believe this is some sort of a, well, it says later it's like a plasma arc in between these two electrodes, and it's actually like a fog or a steam and hydrogen and oxygen all mixed together. That's what I believe that this is showing, because it's not a standard fuel cell where you've just got electrolysis going on. No, there's an actual like electrical gap that must be jumped. Alright, so I'm assuming that it's more than just electrolysis. That's the key. Alright, it's got to be, because there's so much more information here that may answer. Alright, and also he's got written in here oxygen, hydrogen gas passed through 5,000 G field, question mark, which would be a magnetic field. Okay. Alright, let's keep going. Alright, here again, these are the parts I need your help with. This is very important, and I need your help with this. It says, upon the application of powering... Upon the application of power to the magnetizable material, electrodes 160 and 162... let me show you what that is again. Alright, 160 and 162. You see that? Those are the electrodes inside that chamber. It says, the tip of the electrodes in the spark gap will vaporize into particles. Okay, now here's what's interesting. And I just thought of this right now. Discovering things before. This does not have water in it. Or it does not look like it has water in it. This is literally plasma. And what is plasma? An iodized gas? So this is iodized gas, possibly. This is where I need your help, because this is the part that I'm missing. This is it. Okay, I just figured that out. As the particles progress in movement, they pass between the magnetic field generator 175, which is that. Now that could be a coil or permanent magnets. We don't really know what that is. Okay. Further down it says, a low voltage was applied to the particle accelerator. Upon accelerating, a high voltage, high current would be induced in the secondary pickup coil. Okay, so it states right there, low voltage was applied to the particle accelerator, which would be the primary, and upon acceleration, a high voltage current would be induced in the secondary pickup coil. Which, would mean a step-up transformer, and it does say voltage/current, not just voltage. And then here a little bit later it says, the most significant advantage of the present invention is that the voltage amplification is irrespective to the wave shape of input voltage. Now, the statement is interesting, as in that it says it's a voltage amplification. Okay, and it just states that the wave shape is the same, but the amplage voltification, okay, the keywords that I'm picking out there. Alright, although certain embodiments have been shown, it is to be understood modifications may be had without departing from the spirit and scope of the invention. I believe that's... No, it's not the last statement before the claims. But basically what that means is that it could be improved. This isn't the final decision. This is just the beginning of what he's building. Alright, let's keep going. Okay, a little bit later it says in the claims, it says to provide a low input voltage and said secondary winding having the means for tapping a high voltage/current for utilization. So you're inputting a low voltage again there, it says, and a high current output. Okay. Later, it just says you could use gas, liquid, or solid as the particle accelerator. So, again, you can have multiple forms of this type of gas. Alright, particle accelerator further. Okay, a little bit later here it says, and wherein said magnetized elements are permanently magnetized elements. And basically, in some of the diagrams here, it shows the particle accelerator, which would be inducing magnetic flux into the particles, and then they're dark colored, and then once you get to the secondary, they turn white, which means they lost some of their flux. It was induced into this coil. Alright, that's what I'm gathering from this. But if you look at the pump, all the same colored particles all the way around, because they're not using a primary coil to super energize that gas. Okay? So you got to remember that. When it says permanently magnetized elements, that depends on what you're doing, I assume. Magnetizable. Okay, now here it talks about the type of magnetizable material, which is the last picture on this patent. Okay, which does not look like an electrolysis chamber. It looks like a plasma arc chamber. Alright, and it says, an assembly for providing a magnetized particle for utilization and an electrical particle generator comprising a chamber and a pair of magnetizable material electrodes positioned therein, a source of voltage/current of opposing polarity applied to said electrodes, said magnetizable material becoming vaporized upon the application of said voltage current in the said electrodes. So I just figured this out right now. It's great. Basically, he's using something that it's a metal, and when you cause a plasma arc across it, what happens? You eat at that metal and it turns into a vapor. That's the vapor he's putting into this. Alright, and that's important information. That's it. I'll show you this diagram real quick. It's interesting. This is the input and the output. And basically he's got a little coil here with a little input sine wave and a big coil here with a big sine wave output. So it's a step-up transformer. Okay. Alright, look at this patent for yourself and read through it, please. And now let's go into this very important patent that I've never seen before and have not heard anybody discuss before. Okay. Now, this is what's going to be interesting. This is just unbelievable. Alright. Just real quick, I'm going to show you something that's just going to blow your mind. In this patent, patent number 4613304, U.S. patent number, it states, this is under the objectives on page, it doesn't say, it's column 1. It says, it is a principal objective of the present invention to provide a hydrogen gas electrical generator capable of producing a voltage/current much greater in magnitude hereinto possible. Self-sustaining. Alright. That's what it's saying. Here's what it looks like. This is basically what this is. It's actually probably more like... Oh, no, it is that one. See the pump? Here is the pump in this system. Right here. Alright, and then in the next picture, the next diagram, here, this is a primary coil and secondary pickup coils. This is the particle accelerator instead of a pump. Alright.
Different styles.
So here and here could be the primary coils. This right here. Now if you look, it's got multiple coils. Can you see that? And to get AC out with a, I'm not sure what the input is here, we'll figure that out. With an AC signal, with the windings in series and going back and forth, which is what I believe each one of these is. Each one of these is a coil. I cannot confirm that because I cannot tell. Maybe someone else can that has seen this, like Craig. Here it shows DC output, and these windings are in parallel. Okay? So it depends on what you want. But this pipe right here, this 50, is that coil. Is this coil inside there, and these little coils are outside here. Each one of these is a coil. That way you can put them on there instead of trying to wrap the whole thing. So you're utilizing 100% of the gas flow as an output. So this is your input. Look at the coil size. This is your input, is what it looks like. I cannot tell. It looks like this would be your input. Look at your output. Talk about amplification. Look at that. Now I'm ready to show you. I gotta tell you one more thing, then I'm ready to show you something that's gonna blow your freaking mind. Alright, let me look it up. Hold on. Alright, real quick, I'm going to show you where that says here. It says objective. I'll let you read it. You have to pause the video. Alright, then later, it says right here. Okay. You ready for this? This is some serious stuff right here. This is just amazing. Alright, right here it says, can you see that? In a self-sustaining embodiment of the gas electrical generator, a portion of the output at the voltage taps 70 and 72, which in this diagram are right here. That's the output of that coil wrapped around that core. Alright, it says, of the pickup coils is directed back to the power supply, 16, which is here. This is supplying the energy to the cell, which is making the gas, which is running this output coil. Alright, you ready for this? In that the total power requested to be applied to the plates is relatively low, an insignificant portion of the output at taps 70 and 72 is required for sustained operation of the generator. Yeah. Self-sustaining generator. Electrical generator. And producing hydrogen and oxygen to burn at the same time. So important, people. Now, I've got something that's going to back this up, and it's going to blow your mind. You ready? Okay, guys, here I have a video that is on Craig Westbrook's YouTube channel. I'll put that in the description. Here's what the video shows. It's only a 57-second clip. These are on YouTube, by the way. There's a particle accelerator. Can you guys see it? Right there on the bottom? Right there. And there's 3 more. Look at that. There they are. Now you can see the coils a little better on that one. That one down there, it's not even in that other video. Alright, I'm going to stop this. Alright guys, this is Craig Westbrook's video. And this is going to blow your mind. You ready?
Hello, I'm Craig Westbrook. Recently, a lot of people know I went up and located the Stanley Meyer estate. And through some efforts of the group we were with, we had every intention of purchasing it, but you know, as things go, this is some very interesting technology. Stanley Meyer was very much ahead of his time, and it's tragic about what happened to him. The family that we dealt with, they had been holding on to the estate for almost 12 years. And they're very good people. I have nothing but the most respect for them, and they've been taking care of everything for all this time. And I can understand their situation and their position, but I was very, very much privileged to spend a little time with them, to hear their position, and then to get to go through some of Mr. Meyer's equipment. And that's something very few people will ever get to do. I'm one of the very few, and I'm absolutely privileged, and I want to thank the family involved. They've asked me not to mention their names, so I don't. But they know who they are, and they're very good people, and I'd be willing to bet I got every penny of what they were asking for that car, and it was worth every penny. Because the technology it represents something new, something good for everybody. Thank you very much, and let's take a look for a second. I'm going to talk about some things. While we were there.
Okay guys, you ready for this? This is unbelievable. Here we go.
We saw equipment, tech sheets, everything that just blows you away that it was still intact. And a lot of people don't understand hydrogen can be in different states of matter. You've got solid, liquid, gas, and then you've got plasma.
4 states.
And there's also something new that I haven't really told too many people about.
There they are.
Background.
Check it out.
See, these are what we're known as polarized electric gas generators. They use a captured magnetic gas with a very tiny input of electrical energy to produce a massive amount of output electricity, many, many times over unity. Not 1 to 1, 1 to 5, 5 to 10 to 1, maybe 100 or 200 to 1, maybe 1,000 to 1. And that was some of the technology that was buried in this estate, and nobody knew it was there. But we did. Thank you very much. I'm Craig Westbrook. You have a good day now. Thanks.
Alright, guys. Yeah. That's just backing up someone who personally touched this equipment and looked at it. Did they start one up? I don't know. I have not talked to him personally. I don't know. But here's the thing. This patent tells you everything you need to know. I truly believe that Stan went a little bit crazy towards the end of his life. But I think that was because he didn't understand what he had. He tried to explain something that he could not explain, and he just started to lose it. Or somebody was doing something else and giving someone some drugs. But nonetheless, before he started getting a little loopy, this patent was written. And this patent is so important. Okay? Alright, let's go through this patent. 1 second. Okay, guys, so let's get started here. I'm just blown away by what I'm just covering. And like I said, this video is very important. Please upload this to your channel. Upload it 100 times. I don't care. Upload it to other people's channel. Whatever you have to do, do it. Okay. It says in the patent 4613304, a hydrogen gas generator system for converting water into hydrogen and oxygen gases. Here's where it's different. I needed to tell you the dates. The first patent was made, or was dated 4/2/83, April, and the second patent, which is this one, was dated September 23rd, 86. So basically there's 3 years between those two. So I personally think in those 3 years, and I haven't looked at some of the other patents, he may have been playing with making hydroxy gas instead of using the other gas. Okay. Let's get started. Okay, the hydrogen gas system for converting water into hydrogen and oxygen gases. I'm going to show you this picture again. Alright. That's what it looks like. Alright, that's the one with the pump. And here's a short version. Alright, of the one with the electromagnetic particle accelerator. Okay. In combination with a magnetic particle accelerator for a voltage current electrical potential generation. Okay, right there it says a voltage/current electrical potential generation. He's generating electricity with this. There's a key there. I personally think that this is what's running his car. And who cares about efficiency if you're creating your own power? Think about it. I don't know. Just a thought. Let's see here. It says the hydrogen gas generator composes an array of plates emerged in a housing and having natural water pass through out. I don't know. And then basically it says plates, so he's not using the fuel cell capacitor or the, the water cell capacitor that you normally would see. So this is before the water fuel cell. Sorry. Direct current, voltage dependent, current limited. Direct current, not pulsed. That's what it says. Voltage dependent / current limited. So he's limiting the current. The amplification of the voltage might be tremendous. I don't know. if you look at on the here, let me just show you. All right, guys. So I've got this pulled up one more time, and here's what I want to show you on this. This looks like incoming power here, and it looks as if this is a power transformer. So it's just plugged directly into a wall, and that runs the pump. There is nothing else on this at all. You put in the particles, they're constantly always in there on this system with the pump, and you're constantly outputting voltage. Okay? Like, there's nothing else there at all. Input transformer, output toroidal core with gas flowing through it, and all these are coils. Alright? Alright. Let's keep going here. Sorry this is taking forever, but it's terribly important. The hydrogen gas, okay, Alright, current limited. Potential applied to the plates causes the hydrogen/oxygen gas to dislocate from the water molecule. Standard electrolysis is what it sounds like. The upper portion of the container is hydrogen and oxygen mixture collection chamber for maintaining permanent gas pressure. That's another key thing I'm finding in this patent. Permanent gas pressure. It has to be pressurized gas. It can't just be like air. It has to be pressurized gas. And it's, we'll keep going, but it says it in here a lot. Alright. Then it says, there is introduced into the hydrogen-oxygen collection chamber from a source a substantial quantity of permanent magnetically polarized particles. So the particles from a source, okay, are being put in with the hydrogen and oxygen. Alright. And then it says, attached to the gas collection chamber outlet is a non-magnetic, non-conductive closed loop of tubing. Right there it means, in this other patent we weren't for sure if it stated aluminum, copper, we don't know. But in here it says non-magnetic, non-conductive. That means not copper, not aluminum, maybe not stainless steel either. Non-conductive. Plastic is the only thing I can think of. This patent was in '86. I don't know what kind of materials they had at that time, okay? I just don't know. Alright, let's keep going. The polarized magnetic particles are caused to circulate in the closed loop tubing by an electrical or mechanical pump, a pickup coil wound around the tubing. Will have a voltage induced therein as the magnetic field of the polarized magnetic gas particles pass through. Okay, here's the important part. The induced voltage has utilization as an electrical power source. Alright? In that, the hydrogen/oxygen gases are not polarized. That's what it says. So basically, the hydrogen and oxygen are not the polarized material. And it keeps saying, the gases will seek a pressure released vent via an outlet. The hydrogen and oxygen gases may be utilized such as in a burner system. Hello? Run your car, run your house, heat your house. That's what, and have extra electrical output. Come on, guys. This is crazy. Well, I believe it. This is what we're going to be testing, and you guys need to start, testing and building this stuff. I'll read that again. The induced voltage has utilization of an electrical power source. In that, the hydrogen/oxygen gases are not polarized. The gases will seek a pressure release vent. Pressure release via an outlet. The hydrogen gases may be utilized such as in a burner system. Okay, now, alright, let's keep going. I'm going to explain this real quick to you so we know what we're talking about. You got the plates here. You got an input voltage here. There you go. Alright, and you've got a pressure switch here to tell you how much pressure is in this chamber. And then that comes out of the pressure switch and goes to the plates. This is just standard electrolysis. Alright, and you're producing hydrogen and oxygen gases, and they run through the pipe being pushed by a fan. Alright, now this does not show the magnets across it, which is another key thing in this, I believe, is that you have to have that that magnet across here. Okay, and it's not shown in this patent. And gas burners here with a valve and the control system for the valve, and it also running the fan. And the particles come back in here. Now here's the thing that gets me. We don't know what this is. This is just, I'll get through the patent, I'll show you, but this is a chamber, and this could be the plasma arc chamber, now that I think about it. Alright, and it's also inducing gases in here. These are the magnetized particles, and these are not, the ones coming out of the electrolysis process. That's what I'm gathering. I need your opinion on that. I don't really know. And then the other one, same. Okay. Hope you guys are getting good information out of this. Hope I'm clear. I'm just going to read through some of the stuff I highlighted. The upper portion of the container is a hydrogen/oxygen storage chamber for managing the predetermined predetermined level of pressure. The upper portion of the container is a hydrogen-oxygen storage chamber for maintaining a predetermined level of pressure. It's under pressure at all times. It's being maintained by that pressure switch. Okay, there is introduced into the hydrogen-oxygen collection chamber from a source. We don't know what that is. A substantial quantity of permanently magnetically polarized particles. The particles dismerged in the collection chamber will superimpose themselves on the generated hydrogen-oxygen gases. They will superimpose themselves, alright, onto the hydrogen and oxygen gases. Later in here it talks about nitrogen. Okay, I believe that's the other key, nitrogen. I believe nitrogen is actually the magnetized particles. Okay, and then it later says non-conductive, non-magnetic, non-conductive closed loop of tubing. There again it says non-conductive. It's got to be a plastic of some sort. Let's see, down further. It says again, the power-induced voltage, the utilization as electrical output source, in that the hydrogen/oxygen gases are not polarized. The gases will seek a pressure release via a outlet. So the hydrogen and oxygen gases are not the particles that are magnetized. They're just in there. So theoretically you could do without. But I believe this is the key to where Stan started on his car. Because he wanted a gas he could burn. And electrical output. I mean, come on. And it says it's superimposing on the hydrogen and oxygen gases. That has something to do with it too. You guys have to help me out on that. Alright, let's keep going. If you guys haven't seen the home heating system, it says here the hydrogen and oxygen may be utilized such in a burner system. He had made a home heat system, which is actually at the beginning of this video. I can show you that real quick. That's it.
Hello everybody, this is Dan O'Don at the Stanley Meyer's estate to give you a quick view of some of the things that's available in this. This here is the original home heating unit.
A home heating unit. Self-sustaining? I don't know. Alright, that's where he went, I believe, with this. And then he moved to his car. Alright, let's keep going. Alright. A variable source voltage having a circuitry to restrict the amperage. Alright, that's just part in here. Restrict the amperage. Comprise additionally a pair of terminals connected to a positive and negative voltage to the alternating plates in the pair. Okay. pair. So was there only 2 plates? I don't know. It sounds like it. Alright, and let's keep going. Okay, here's where it gets interesting. This, I think, is a key as well. The released hydrogen gas dissipated as particles and oxygen gas particles are collected in the storage in the chamber together with other released gases such as nitrogen. The nitrogen could have been in the water as it's in the air and everywhere else. So you have nitrogen, oxygen, and hydrogen. Are any of those magnetizable and permanently magnetizable? I don't know. Something you guys need to figure out and help me out with. The number and size of turns related to the tubing configuration of voltage current output is set forth by my co-pending application. So, in the other patent, it talks about that. That's what it's saying, basically. Keep going here. As set forth in the storage chamber is maintained at a predetermined pressure. Once the pressure is attained, the hydrogen and oxygen gases will be expelled into the outlet line with a substantial velocity. So you're building up pressure and then releasing it. So I believe there might be a valve in the system between where the hydrogen and oxygen are and the outlet. That's kind of what it says there. Okay, upon ignition, the hydrogen/oxygen gases will have the particles superimposed. There will be separated and pressure released via the tubing. So the hydrogen and oxygen gases have the particles superimposed. Therein will separate. Okay. So let's keep going. The motion of the polarized particles through the closed loop will be greater than the gas mixture pressure released. So that means the pressure in the closed loop system is higher than what's being released out. That is, the valve 37 open and hydrogen and oxygen gases will separate themselves from the polarized particles. Okay, so it says when you burn the hydrogen and oxygen, basically, the gases will separate themselves from the polarized particles. So whatever the polarized particles are not necessarily being released, they're being contained. I don't know how that works either. Okay, again here it says the pressure gauge achieves a predetermined level. What is that level? What PSI is that level? That's something we need to find out. Okay, also this permits the entry into the chamber as a subsequential amount of permanently polarized magnetic particles. Polarized particles, upon entry into the chamber, superimpose themselves on the hydrogen and oxygen gases. In this diagram, that's another thing I don't know what this is. We don't know what this is. Out of there comes magnetized particles. Permanently magnetized particles. Like I showed earlier in this other patent, it could be something that looks like this. Now here's my guess. Later he comes up with this steam resonator. And basically it's a superheated steam is what it is. And is that what that is? I don't know. That's something I need your all's help with. I really do. I gotta figure this out. Okay, where was I? It is to be appreciated that the minuscule amount of polarized particles will be carried into the outlet, as well as hydrogen and oxygen gases continuing to circulate through the closed loop. In the event the amount of polarized particles expended should become significant, the quantity of particles will be replenished from source. We don't know what that is. So if you do a closed loop system, you basically don't have to put anything into it. Just the electrical signal coming in accelerates the particles. Out comes the electricity from the pickup coils. But if you're using it to burn the hydrogen and oxygen gas, then you'll need it. So theoretically, it's a self-sustaining unit that you can utilize to also use the hydrogen and oxygen to burn something. This is just some important information, guys, that you need to read this patent for yourself. With hydrogen and oxygen gases mixture to predetermined circuit consequence, the polarized particles will not be separated from the hydrogen and oxygen gases at the outlet. Okay, the magnetized particle source, 32. Alright, okay, that's what it says. This is what we need to figure out what this is. In this diagram again, here is 32. That's where the magnetized particles are coming from. Not the hydroxy, but here. Okay. The magnetized particle source, 32, which is that box I showed you, is operative to transform a material. Could be a solid, could be a liquid. It doesn't say. To transform a material into minute vapor particles that are capable of being permanently polarized magnetically. The vapor, in the nature of the gas, will superimpose on the hydrogen and oxygen gases. If I'm not mistaken, nitrogen will do that. Okay. I don't know. I need your help. I'm not a physics person here. I wish I knew that stuff, but I don't. I need your help. Please let me know. If you have any ideas on this stuff, please let me know. Okay. Okay. It is to be recalled, polarized particles have placed there on a magnetic field potential. Hence, the magnetized particles approach the accelerator. They are attracted as they pass the center of the accelerator, and they are propelled through. States in the earlier patents a little more clear than that. Basically, it's pulled into the magnetic coil and pushed out the other side because they're polarized magnetic particles. So it'd just be like a magnet in the coil. It'd be sucked into the coil, but it'd also be repelled at the same time. That's what's interesting. Alright, let's keep going. I'm going to keep looking here. Okay, guys, again, it says in the patent a little bit later again, the voltage is current limited, which I believe is part of the choke in the VIC circuit. What the choke does is resonate, but it also limits the current, I think. Somebody else can correct me. Restrict the amperage to negligible value related to the said voltage. So the amperage is way down, and the voltage does not say. It could be way high. That's what the VIC circuit does, by the way. Let's keep going. Again, I told you this earlier, but it says, in a self-sustaining embodiment of the gas electrical generator, a portion of the output at the voltage taps of the pickup coils is directed, oh there it says pickup coils, which means that all those coils around them, is directed back to the power supply, in that the total power requested to be applied to the plates is relatively low. It says right there what it is. This is crazy. An insignificant portion of the output at taps 7072, the output coil, is required for sustained operation of the generator. Those are some deep words right there. Basically, this is a self-sustaining system. It's unbelievable. A little bit later it says, the electrical particle portion of the electrical gas generator of the present invention is operative continuously as set forth from above. Hence, the output voltage at tap 7072 would be available to the power supply whenever the demand for the gas generation is made. It also does say in this patent that the gases are constantly moving through there, even if you're not burning the flame, you still have to run the pump or the electrical accelerator so that you constantly create voltage. Once the system stops, you have to restart it somehow. Okay, that's what it's basically saying. Be right back. A source of permanently magnetizable polarized particles connected to a sad inlet, wherein a sad particle, upon entering sad inlet to sad chamber, becomes superimposed on hydrogen and oxygen gases. If you guys know what kind of particles can be superimposed onto hydrogen and oxygen, please let me know. I am not a physics person. I wish I knew that stuff. I just don't. I wish I do. So those of you that do, you better let me know. Alright, let's see. Again, it just says superimposing particles. Predetermined pressure again. How many psi is that? We don't know. Okay, wherein said electrical means as an alternative voltage output, wherein said means for varying the acceleration of said polarized particles comprised of varying the frequency of said alternating input voltage. It states here also about the AC/DC and the waveforms. Any type of the waveforms you put into it, it's going to give you relatively the same output voltage, or I mean waveform. So what's interesting about that is that you could put AC signal into it and you're going to get an AC signal out of it, even though in that system it would seem like the particles are moving one way through that tube, but really they'd be oscillating. So that's just something we need to play with. Okay, it's again down here at the bottom it says a variable voltage source having circuit means for restricting current. Okay, that's the end of the patent. I don't know what else to say, guys. This is just some serious business. This video needs to be posted everywhere you can possibly get it. I really think this is very important information, and I have never seen this patent. If you have seen this patent, let me know. I'm curious. Information for me is in the beginning of this video. I don't really have any more notes here. I will show you what I've done. Might as well put that on the end of this video. It's already super long. I don't even know how long this video is. It's crazy. I'll show you what I've done here. Okay. Here's what I'm going to be trying. I've got some tubing here. I've got some solenoid valves. And I'm going to be making me a single loop toroidal transformer. Gas core. Just like this. Alright. That's what I'm going to be doing. And the gases will come in here and exit here. Okay, and I'm going to put two coils on here of the exact same dimensions. And I'm going to put an input, and I want to see what the output does. Now, theoretically, you could have one little input coil, and this whole entire thing would be output coils everywhere else. But I want a one-to-one, and I want to see what the input versus the output is. Then I can continuously add coils on there like I showed you in the diagrams on the videos. Here's my little rustic spiral cell I made. I bent the ends down and I finished the ends on the bottom a little different. I'm going to put this in a tube and close it, cap it off, and see what we get as far as that's going to be my hydrogen producer. And I guess I need to look into more of what's going on with this this part here. This is where I need your guys' help. I'm still learning. What is this? This is where the magnetized particles come from. The only thing I can see from 3 years prior that is in a patent would be this. Okay. I don't know, I guess I need you guys to help me out here. That's what I need you for, but I'm done. I'm done talking. I'm not going to bore you guys anymore, and you probably weren't bored, but I don't know what else to say. Go figure this stuff out. I really think that this is the beginning of what Stan's doing in his later work. Here I have the right here steam resonator. That's in his all of his new stuff, but it's not really in the diagrams. The VIC matrix. Okay. Here's another patent that you should probably definitely have. I've highlighted some interesting things in it, but I'm not going to go through it. But get this. Here's my take on this. This, you all seen this. Got the the gated pulse signal to a transformer. Now, in most of the diagrams, most of you have seen it. A lot of this information's missing. Check it out. I've got a diode number here. Let me start over. I'm going to give you the patent number. There's the patent number. 4936961. The patent is titled a method for the production of a fuel a gas fuel. Method for the production of a fuel gas. Alright, and again, look at there, toroidal core. Personally, I do not think that is a gas core transformer. I personally think that this whole entire system is being ran off the gas core transformer. That's my personal opinion on that. I don't know, but it seems that, like Alex Petty, I believe at the moment thinks that that's how it is. I'm not for sure if that's how he thinks or not. I did want to show you one more thing, and the reason that I want to show you this. Hold on. Alright guys, it's going to be kind of hard to see, but that is the steam resonator and the VIC circuit. I don't see anywhere here where this would be a gas core transformer. So my take on that is that it's not a gas core transformer. And there's a few places where it says it's a steel, comprised of steel. And it says that in one of the, I believe it's in this patent. But it's comprised of steel. Alright, but here it says the core. Okay. I'm going to let you read through this patent yourself. There's the blocking diode number. Now, so there has been talk about this patent I saw online, but I haven't seen anybody talk about that other patent. It gives you the number of windings. Alright. But, yeah, that's my take on that. My take is that, basically, this and these things are the key. They run the whole system. That's my opinion. I really don't know. Alright. I'm done. I'm done talking. I really don't know how long this video is. Probably 50 minutes. An hour. I'm going to leave you guys alone. I need you to do me a favor and upload this video everywhere you can. I need you to post it as many times as you want to on other people's channels. Hack people's channels and post. I don't care what you do. Just get this video out there. This is important information. I feel that it needs to be widely spread as fast as possible. Okay, I'm out. Make sure you download this video. I'll put everything you guys need to know in the description of this video. Links. A link to this video. You can permanently download it. Do it right away. Do it right away before you start this video. I guess it's too late now if you watch it this far. I'll give you links to Alex Petty's log and any other information I think is important. I will continuously update this data in the description. If you repost this video, please attach the information.